Good evening. It is 6 o'clock on August 12th, 2024, and I call this regularly scheduled meeting to order. Councilman Seconder, can you lead us in the invocation and the pledge, please?
At this meeting, help us to make decisions which keep us faithful to our mission and reflect our values. Give us strength to hold to our purpose, wisdom to guide us, and a keen perception to lead us. And above all, keep us charitable as we deliberate. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We will now have public comments. If anyone wants to speak and hasn't turned in a card, they're back there on the thing that looks like a piano music stand. Mr. Hickey, approach and you'll have 3 minutes, sir. Just introduce yourself.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and City Council member. I am Bob Hickey, a Dunwoody citizen for 49 years. I was having a fantastic summer until I read the unaudited 2023 year-end financial statements, finally available in July, 6 months after year-end. I was expecting a nice surplus as shown in the unaudited year-end financial data prepared by city staff. Also, Madam Mayor, you have stated on multiple occasions, the city has never had a deficit under my watch. So you can imagine the shock and horror when I read the CPA financial statements, which showed a general fund deficit of $1,454,553, a deficit of $1,454,553. That's not bad, okay? But the year-end unaudited financial statements prepared by the city staff and on the website since February showed a surplus of $1,648,528. Wow, a difference of $3,103,081, or 10% of city expenditures. What happened? What caused the errors of this magnitude? Why weren't the citizens notified? Incompetence or larceny? Well, the city whistleblower hotline will catch a tip on this if it's larceny. Oh, by the way, what is the telephone number for the whistleblower hotline? You might recall that I spoke several times last summer about the similar thing when the CPA in the 2022 financial statements made 13 adjustments. Same errors and incompetence, huh? And I remember the city staff and a council member stating before the $60 million bond referendum last November that an outside audit of spending of bond proceeds was not necessary because city staff could properly account for all spending. Well, I guess the result of the no bond prevented another act of incompetence. Our city elected officials need to get to the bottom of this mess. Hold the city manager, finance director, and any other responsible person accountable. Make a public report on the results. Dunwoody citizens demand fair and timely financial data reporting. Thank you.
Thank you. Gerald, just approach and you'll have 3 minutes, sir. Just introduce yourself, please.
Gerald McCarley. Good evening. 1964 Cranbourne Court, Dunwoody. Let me be clear before I start. I am a supporter of the Dunwoody Police Department and a contributor to the Dunwoody Police Foundation. However, I hope this is not a headline in the Dunwoody Crier next week. Dunwoody Police Department has a similar diversity goal as the U.S. Secret Service. Let me repeat. The Dunwoody Police Department has a similar diversity goal as the U.S. Secret Service. The Dunwoody Police Department has a diversity goal of implementing 30% female staffing by 2030. The Dunwoody police goals have no reference to police recruits having satisfactory qualifications or having physical abilities to perform or execute dangerous tasks. Presently, the Dunwoody Police Department has a vacancy of about 10 officers. As we know, there is a shortage of qualified police officers. In my opinion, you have appointed an outstanding professional to be chief of the Dunwoody Police Department. Do not micromanage the chief. Do not build fences around the department. Please give the chief an opportunity to be successful. Let him employ the most qualified individuals available without any diversity requirements. I checked with the Georgia State Patrol, and they have no diversity goals. They are looking for qualified individuals that want to be a public safety officer, and they are hard to find. I can assure you, if there is a public safety failure, the mayor and council, you, will be pointing fingers, but not at yourselves. In fact, you may want to have another study by the consultant that supervises an 8-person department. I beg you to not micromanage the chief of police and certainly do not have any diversity requirements. As I said earlier, give the chief an opportunity to be successful. I hope you will take action tonight to eliminate the diversity goal of the police department and to expand the goals to include satisfactory qualifications and having the physical abilities to perform or execute dangerous tasks. After all, one of the primary reasons the city was formed is so that we would have a good public safety. Thank you, and I hope you listen.
Ali? I think I saw you, but you hide behind the post. You'll have 3 minutes, sir. Just introduce yourself.
It hasn't started down. I don't know if I have to. Okay, cool. Thank you, City Council. I'll just keep talking until it goes to 0. So thank you, City Council, for taking time to talk to me today. I actually wanted to reiterate kind of the same thing. So a couple of weeks ago, we had an event, I think it was like tacos with the police department, and I attended the event. It was around the pre-evening time. Normally these are like in the morning. And I didn't expect to see too many people there just because it's supposed to be like heavy hailstorm, terrible weather, all sorts of everything. It was packed. Even at like 4:30, it was completely packed. I think we had to overflow into the other room. It was really nice to see the amount of support from the citizens. And I know a lot of citizens generally don't come to these type of meetings, but the overwhelming lesson I thought I gathered from that was it does seem like that is really important to the citizens of Dunwoody. The police department is very important. I mean, if they're all going to go there in the midst of a thunderstorm, hail Mary, whatever went down, it obviously is something very important. I mean, it was a good event. So building off of that, I just want to say that I think that is somewhere where we should continue to put funds into. We should continue to support. We should continue to over support, because I would imagine that's important to us. One thing is, as High Street goes on, if we can give more money in the artillery for them to give more overtime and different things along those lines, I think that would be appreciated. But overall, the message is that is an area we'd like to see more support into. That is an area that we're comfortable spending more money, overspending money into. And I think that's important to Dunwoody residents, especially myself, just to see that we are continuously supporting our police department as much as we can. Thank you.
Thank you. Tom Simon, please just approach and you'll have 3 minutes, sir. I believe they start the clock when you start speaking, just to eliminate any confusion.
Good. Thank you. Tom Simon, citizen for the last 46 years of Georgia and of Dunwoody. First of all, I support Chief Mike Carlson and the Dunwoody Police Department, period. Okay. Full staffing the Dunwoody uniform officers should be priority 1. Now, the U.S. Secret Service is an example of why 30% women hired by 2030 is a bad idea. Just look at what happened in Pennsylvania and DEI hires at MIT, Harvard, Penn, and other institutions. In reading the audited financial statements, I discovered a matter even worse. The city has a stated goal, objective priority of 30% female officers staffing by 2030. This should not be a goal. This is really not right. Recall that the Secret Service has a similar goal, and we know what happened. It is totally unacceptable to have a DEI objective in any operation that directly affects public safety. As stated many times over on TV during the past 3+ weeks, the better alternative expression with this type of objective that affects public safety is DIE. We are all fortunate that President Trump was not assassinated. All we need to do is look at the Secret Service and its DEI hire at the helm, now gone. The DEI City Council objective of Dunwoody Police Department needs to be strongly opposed and eliminated. Hire the most qualified, the most deserving of a public service police officer position, man or woman. Dunwoody security and safety demands it. If something dreadful happens with the DEI hire, each and every member of the city council will be liable and held responsible. I wasn't going to say this, but I'm going to say it anyway. When I heard Joe Seconder do the invocation, I assume you were talking to God when you did the invocation, but his name is never mentioned. Thank you.
Joe?
Hello, in our city's agenda, it looks like tonight y'all somehow left off something. Y'all normally recognize someone at the beginning of council meetings to show and honor people. And the city did not remember to, and I'll help you out, to recognize former Dunwoody police officer Austin Handel. As you probably know, a couple weeks ago in Washington, D.C., at a ceremony hosted by Congress members and other dignitaries, Austin Handel spoke and was recognized on National Whistleblower Day. The event was carried by C-SPAN and brought the audience to its feet with a round of applause, showing that Austin has courage, a quality that this council has a hard time demonstrating itself. National Whistleblower Day is celebrated every July 30th. Since the Continental Congress in 1778 passed legislation to protect whistleblowers, knowing how important these people are. As you'll recall, Austin was wrongly fired from the Dunwoody Police Department in 2020. Our city accused Handel of lying during the department's internal investigation. They also tried to prevent Austin from collecting unemployment benefits, which caused him great harm. But in 2023, Austin won an unemployment appeal, and the Georgia Department of Labor awarded him more than $10,000 from Dunwoody, as officials ruled that the claims against him were baseless. Dunwoody was wrong. Austin now serves on a board as a board member for the Lamplighter Project, a nonprofit that serves as a support group for police whistleblowers. You know, police officers who do the right thing. Austin says, quote, "It is always the right time to report misconduct. It's always the right time to do the right thing," unquote. And I will note that this city should learn from Austin. Show some respect to the residents of our great city and do the right thing, because all I see from this city is circling the wagons, protecting the criminals, and people who have no business serving Dunwoody. You know the people that I'm talking about. You know exactly who I'm referring to. But you're not good people when you turn a blind eye to injustice. Austin has more decency than any of you up here who sit in silence when there is wrongdoing in our city. I'll say that again. You all sit in silence when you see and know of wrongdoing and just nod your heads and pretend like nothing's happening. That's shameful. So, Austin Handel represents the best attributes of a city employee. So please join me, and I hope that you'll join me with a round of applause for Austin Handel being recognized on national stage for being a whistleblower against the city of Dunwoody. Wow, that speaks volumes, doesn't it? Thank you.
Bob Dallas.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. I'm Bob Dallas. I live at 1445 Valley View Road. Although I'm a 41-year resident of Dunwoody, I firmly believe whether you've been here 1 year, 43, or 46, everybody should have an equal vote if you call Dunwoody home. I'm here today to say thank you. Thank you to each of you. And why? Well, I served on the organization Dunwoody Yes that worked hard to help create this city. And one of the things we used to joke about is, wouldn't it be great to talk to your local official about what's going on, what it's affecting you within the city? Well, I just want to say, as to each of you, you've done a great job of reaching out to citizens at their homes, at their recreation centers, anywhere that they are, to listen to their concerns. And I'll use an example. And that example is the Dunwoody citizen-approved master trail plan. And in that plan, there's been a lot of conversation about it. And I welcome that conversation, whether you're for it, you oppose it, or you don't care. If you have an opinion about it, it's great that you guys listen. And so I just want to say thank you to each of you for taking the opportunity to listen and furthermore, to understand what the citizens are saying. I believe that each of you have taken the effort to listen and understand so that you then can make better decisions. And so I just want to say thank you for doing that. I very much appreciate it.
Thank you. That concludes public comment. There'll be another session at the end of the meeting if you're interested and you're still here. I was going to ask council if we could please move number 2 to number 1. But I think first, while people are still here, it might be helpful, Eric, just to clarify something. Sorry, Mr. Attorney, you can tell me to stop if you want me to, but maybe Deputy Chief can come up here and talk about the policy that several people questioned. First of all, Eric, I want to clear, did City Council have anything to do with that policy? The goal of hiring more women? What'd you say? 30% by
Right. Now, that was not a initiative of the council. That came
Right.
from the police
from
department.
the police department.
But I don't know, Oliver's here if he wants to
Right.
come up and.
If he's comfortable of just clarifying where this came from and no, come on up, Deputy Chief. And explain, first of all, I'm going to ask you a question. When we're interviewing officers, what is the number one criteria we're looking for?
We're looking for a great viable candidate.
Right, a viable candidate. And do we reject more candidates than we accept?
Absolutely.
Right, including candidates that are certified officers in other municipalities and counties and the Georgia State Patrol?
That's
Yes,
correct.
right.
I don't think we've had a trooper lately. but
Okay, not lately, okay. But certainly from other cities and counties,
Yes,
there are
ma'am.
candidates who do not meet our very high standards.
That is correct.
All right, so this policy, which I learned about in a press release, came from your department, correct? Came from the police department.
It was not initiated from the police department. It was
Okay.
actually started with the International Association
Yes.
of Chiefs of Police.
Right, okay. But it was not initiated by city council.
Oh, absolutely not.
Mhm. All right, and we have office, again, because I'm always hearing, Mayor, there's this many candidates in the pipeline, and then they don't often make it to the finish line,
That's
correct?
correct, ma'am.
Right, which is because we have really high standards, and we are not lowering those standards. What'd you say? Whether they're from Mars. We have really high standards. One of the reasons we have those vacancies is because of our really high standards, correct?
That's correct.
Right, and what is our number one priority is maintaining those high standards, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Because we know that the best trained officers make the best department.
That's also correct.
Okay, thank you. All right, now, if it's okay with council, oh, I'm sorry, you may go sit down because you're not involved in the next thing. Thank you. Now, if it's okay with council, so that the officers that are here can get back to their duties, if we move number 2 to number 1, please. Yes. Moved, all in favor? Any opposed? All right, Hope, and I guess you're bringing Barry too. Yeah, he's doing that. Oh, yeah. Okay, is the green light on the microphone?
Yes.
Okay. Go ahead and begin, please. We're so thrilled you're here.
So good evening. My name is Hope Fulmer, and I'm the director of the Dunwoody Preservation Trust Lemonade Days Festival. What began in 1999 as a one-day grassroots fundraiser to assist our neighbors whose property had been devastated in the tornado before. The festival is now a 5-day Dunwoody signature event with an estimated attendance of 40,000. And I think I can say one of the highlights of our city calendar. Celebrating our 25th anniversary next year, the festival now features midway carnival rides, over 15 food and beverage vendors, 30 plus on-site sponsor booth, a Dunwoody authors and friends, of book sales and signings to highlight and to spotlight our literary talent. 2 days of bands on our Fifth Third Bank performance stage, a Dunwoody Idol contest to spotlight young singing talent in our hood, and the crowning of an honorary Miss Lemonade Days Queen to recognize a volunteer who has worked behind the scenes tirelessly to support our mission of preserving the past, celebrating the present, and planning for the future of our city. This event would not be possible without the support of the city of Dunwoody, its elected officials and staff, the Dunwoody Parks and Recreation Department and its staff, Discover Dunwoody, the Dunwoody Chamber, and our finest, the Dunwoody Police Department, and those officers who are on site each and every day. It is an honor and a great privilege to be here tonight with our Director of Security, Barry Deutsch, and on behalf, trying to hide behind the column, and on behalf of the Dunwoody Preservation Trust, its board, staff, membership, and volunteers, we are here to present our first Dunwoody Preservation Trust Lemonade Days Festival Unsung Hero Award.
Should I embarrass them and bring them up first?
Yeah.
So just in order to embarrass them some more, could Lieutenant Dove and Sergeant Seela come up here? And Lemonade Days is the largest event in Dunwoody from number of attendees and duration of the event. Consequently, there are security issues and risks. This past year, we were more proactive than ever in addressing and mitigating these risks. Lieutenant Dove and Sergeant Seela were a huge part of this process. Lemonade Days is a 5-day event which is open for 36 hours. However, our security envelope includes 2 hours before, an hour afterwards, and so we were concerned about 51 hours on the ground. In addition, security encompassed being aware of outside threats made before or during the event. This has become a regional event that draws individuals from all over Metro Atlanta. Lieutenant Dove and Sergeant Seela took a serious approach to make sure all our citizens and visitors were safe. I believe this is the largest and most complex event in Dunwoody from a security perspective. Lieutenant Dove and Sergeant Seela were instrumental in developing a new security protocols to handle a variety of scenarios, from lost children to injury response to criminal or violent situations. They were also instrumental in establishing procedures and training for both private security guards and officers from other agencies. In addition, they spent a lot of time recruiting our officers to various shifts, to work various shifts. While there were challenges, the procedures worked and responses were immediate. The procedures worked and responses were immediate and effective. Both Lieutenant Dove and Sergeant Seela did an excellent job for the city of Dunwoody and were exemplary representatives of the Dunwoody Police Department. We look forward to working with them as we continue to improve security for our future events. We would like to present these Dunwoody Preservation Unsung Hero Award plaques to Sergeant Seela and Lieutenant Dove. The plaques read, "In recognition and appreciation of outstanding leadership to safeguard and to serve our festival community, staff, and partnering organizations. So thank y'all very much. And this one's Ann Morris. And we know they spent many hours and they couldn't have done it without the permission from their wives and others. And so we have the flowers to get you out of trouble at home.
Thank you, Sergeant Sela and Lieutenant Dove. As the event grows more complicated and complex and just busier, our Dunwoody Police Department has made it possible for the event to happen and keep the children, families that visit and live here safe. As always, we appreciate it. It's a really, really nice piece of community policing as well. Okay, yeah, after the report. All right, thank y'all. Eric, whenever you're ready.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Mayor. Okay, this is the report ending August the 9th, 2024. So we have, under Parks Department, we have our color scheme has been selected for the Waterford Park Playground. That was something that was vetted through the neighborhood residents there. And that playground will be installed by the end of the year. We also have the holiday lights, and we'll hear more about that later tonight. We did receive the proposals on that. We had August the 10th, we had our Groovin' on the Green. The 26th is National Dog Day. We'll have a pop-up at Brook Run Dog Park. And then our next Groovin' on the Green is in September on the 14th. The Two Bridges Park Shade Structure schedule is going to start on the 23rd of September. That's something that's been long awaited. We're gonna have those structures that are custom made. So those will be put in at that point in time. And those structures, we wanted to wait till the end of the season before we put those up, so it didn't disrupt summer activities there. We did have also that the Pigs in the Park had an average attendance of about 200 people. Groovin' on the Green has an attendance of about 900 people. And then we have the Dunwoody Community Garden and Orchard Harvest Team has harvested and donated about 1,250 pounds of fresh veggies and herbs to the storehouse year to date, Macau's Storehouse, excuse me. And then summer camp success, we had the Sproul Center for the Arts served about 1,100 summer campers, plus awarded 142 scholarships. Stage Door Theater hosted 336 summer campers, including 94 campers through the new residency at Clarkston Community Center, plus awarded 13 full scholarships. So during that time, what I'm trying to do here is show y'all some of the stats that we have for the youth that's gone on in Dunwoody, which also included 500 youth and adult players for Rush Union Soccer. And we had 220 children attend the Dunwoody Preservation Trust Camp Flashback. So quite a great summer in the Parks Department. The police, we have our real-time crime center is in full operation now. We have hired our first 2 public safety ambassadors. The first one's going to actually started today. We had our promotional ceremonies last week for the police department. We also have tomorrow is our Citizens Police Academy will begin. We have the Real-Time Crime Center ribbon cutting on the 15th of August. That's by invitation only, just because of the size of the facility. And then we have on the 15th also has National Night Out at Brook Run Park. We do have a new canine handler. This is for our safety, our public safety assistance canine. And this is a canine that has been brought to us through the foundation to assist with officers who need some additional comforting and things that may be from a traumatic situation. Now, all the crime stats are listed on the link within the report. I encourage both the council and the public to take a look at that. It's always very enlightening to see what's going on in the city, and also the outstanding job that our police officers do to keep crime at a minimum in the city. Public Works, we did complete the Vermac Path construction with the road opening 12 days ahead of schedule. I want to point that out. I know we try to hit the targets, but on this one, we were actually ahead of schedule on that one. We were awarded $430,000 from GDOT for safety projects. We also completed the pedestrian hybrid beacon at Chestnut Elementary School prior to the start of school, and we were awarded a $600,000 grant from the Georgia Environmental Protection Division for the Dunwoody Nature Center Boardwalk project. And if you haven't been over to the Nature Center, please take a look when you have time at all the new improvements we've put in at that facility as well. We have our resurfacing of the Arts Center and library parking lot is underway. They weren't there today, but they'll be back tomorrow. That parking lot, as y'all know, was in desperate need of repair. So we're doing deep patching, some concrete work, some driveway relocation, and also ultimately the resurfacing of that lot. That will all be completed by the end of September. The August, we're also paving in the perimeter area, and that will finish up the season's paving. Ashford Dunwoody Phase 1, we've completed 1 of 6 plazas along that route. Vermac Road Phase 2, we're coordinating with Georgia Power for streetlight installation. Also, our gateway signs are expected to be installed in September. And we did this year on our annual paving contract, completed 2 additional streets in July, bringing it to a total of 13 of 20 streets planned to be paved this year, from 13 to 20. It says of 20, but from 13 to 20 streets. The under communications, we do have a video talking about the pedestrian hybrid beacon has gone in that I just mentioned a moment ago. Also, we've been working heavily on the comprehensive plan rollout, and we have a connect with the council for both Rob Price and Joe Seconder coming up September the 12th and then the 14th. For those items as well. We have under community development, we have our first public hearing for the comprehensive plan and code rewrite named Direction Dunwoody, and that was on July the 22nd. But we have our survey that's still going live into August, so please encourage all citizens to comment on those comprehensive plan and also the code details. That's a huge move for the council to have initiated that project, so we want to keep that moving. We also submitted our 2023 annual comprehensive financial report to the Government Finance Officers Association for review and consideration for a certificate of achievement for excellence in financial and reporting award. We hope to continue that streak going there. We did have our audit committee today. I'm gonna brief you all on that in a moment. And we also received 27 responses for an RFQ for the Shamley Dunwoody Georgetown Gateway Public Art Sculpture solicitation. So quite an interest in that. The last item I'm going to mention in the report is under municipal court. We did finish our amnesty program at the end of July, a very successful program. I tried to mention that throughout the year, something that we've done every year since I've been here, basically. And it's our court clerk came up with the idea. I've been a huge supporter of that, to try to clear the books and have people come in and pay their fines and not have a warrant hanging over their head. So we are doing those, and we've completed it for this year. Under the, we did have an interesting email last week or a couple weeks ago from a citizen that was talking about our the financial statements. And we did have, as I mentioned a moment ago, our audit committee today. And Michael Johnston, who is our internal auditor, is here with us. And at the pleasure of the council, I'd like for him to come up for a moment as part of my report and just give you a brief synopsis of that. And Richard, if you want to bring him up and introduce him as well, if y'all can come up for a moment and talk about the audit committee to give a brief overview on that.
Good evening. So
Yeah.
yes, we have an audit committee that meets 4 times a year, each quarter. Consists of 5 members are placed on the board. And they set an agenda for an internal auditor that we've awarded by RFP to come in and perform quarterly audits, basically. So Michael Johnston with Nichols Cawley is the auditor, and he's here to just give you a brief update of what he's been working on.
Good evening. Thank you, Richard. So I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you. I can be long-winded, so feel free to brush me off as you need to keep on schedule. So seriously, I appreciate the opportunity to be here with you this evening. And I think it's important that periodically you see me and I see you. It's important that you know that I work for you. And my process in this as the internal auditor serving the city is I'm impartial. I work for you as you represent the citizens. And so I'm impartial in the process. What we and I do for the city very briefly is we perform internal audits for the city generally on a quarterly basis. We work with the audit committee to identify areas of potentially high risk, areas that have citizen awareness, areas that have public awareness, areas that have a high area of complexity in accounting. So just a risk assessment process to identify areas that we can focus on and provide feedback and reports back to the audit committee. When I meet with the audit committee after my team and I perform an audit, we present a formal report and update the committee on the procedures we performed, the findings, any recommendations we have, and perform follow-up on those recommendations on a go-forward basis to see how the staff has addressed those. So I come back to where I started, that I think it's important that we see each other periodically so you know that I'm here for you and I work directly for you. One thing that Mr. Linton had mentioned previously is the city has just filed in their what's used to be called a CAFR, now it's called an ACFR, Annual Comprehensive Financial Report. It used to be a Comprehensive Annual Financial Report. So we changed a couple letters there, focusing on the important things, the order of the letters. And so that's been changed, and now it's an ACFR. And so you have recently filed your Annual Comprehensive Financial Report with the Government Finance Officers Association and the Georgia State Department of Audits. You have an external audit firm unassociated with me that comes in and performs an external audit of your annual financial statements. That firm provided to you what's called a clean opinion. They said in their report, your financial statements are fairly stated in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles generally accepted as they apply to governmental entities. And so that's the right answer. That's what you want to have. In their reports, they also did not identify anything that they would have believed to be a material weakness or a deficiency in your internal control system that they identified in their audit process. And they also did not indicate that they had identified any question costs or findings. You have a single audit, so they have to look at question cost. And they did not identify any question costs or findings or compliance issues as they went through that audit process. Those are all good things and things that you should know. And so no issues there at all. So I think those are all good things that you should hear and know about as we move forward. Moving forward with the question that Mr. Linton had indicated about the citizens email and the question there. And so Mr. Linton and Mr. Plato asked me if I would review that situation and see what I thought of what the issue was. And so I'll try not to get into debits and credits and as I explain that to you, but the circumstance is I've looked at it and I don't believe there to be an issue of discrepancy. And I'll tell you why at a 30,000 foot level, why I don't believe there's an issue of discrepancy. The city issues a monthly financial statement that has an intention of informing the citizenry of what I'm going to call a transparent checkbook. And I think that's probably the intent. I'm not part of staff and staff knows the intent, but I believe that to be the intent. And that checkbook format is issued in, number one, a format that is easily deliverable from the very specific governmental accounting system, general ledger system that you're using. It's also intended to be in a format that can be comparable with other cities of your size or counties or whatever governmental organizations you can compare yourself to see how you're performing with them. So there's a format that's derived for that, that's developed by staff, by finance staff. And that arrives at a number that I'm going to call net income. There's another term that's used for it in the governmental world, but I'm going to call it net income. In preparing that net income for the city checkbook and that management report, certain things are classified into what I'm going to call revenue, your income, your revenue. Then the question from the citizen is, I've looked at this annual comprehensive financial report that you prepared, and I see a difference in net income. And the reason for the difference in net income is they're apples and oranges. There's two different reports. There's two different intents. The management report is intended to be a checkbook arriving at a very basic net income number. The annual comprehensive financial report has other things that impact net income. First, and this is a large part of the difference, is that the hotel motel tax revenues that you received on the management report are revenues. On the annual comprehensive financial report, they're below the net income line transfers in. So they're different. And they're you have to, I know people who have studied governmental accounting standards for 30 years. This is a very complicated 100-page report broken into special revenue funds, governmental funds, general funds, capital project funds, et cetera. And it's a very defined format that does not always equate consistently to a checkbook format. But I have worked with the finance director to reconcile those two numbers. And they reconcile. So I can appreciate the question, but there's not a discrepancy there. So I think I probably used my 3 minutes.
All right. Does anyone have questions for the speaker or Eric? Anybody? Or questions for Eric about the report? Go ahead. You can sit down just in case somebody wants you. Don't leave yet, please.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you for the report, though. It is appreciated. Eric, 2 questions, if I may. We're looking at the police report and how they're giving the crime stats. This has been a big change this month over previous months. And there's a link that's given, and that link comes back. Instead of giving any detail of any crime or any activity of the police department, it's really a chart which shows high-level numbers. And I understand there's a new police chief, and I understand there might be changes in the reason why. I'll let you explain the reason why in a second. But I guess what I'm really worried about is that there's going to be changes in transparency in the sense of future reporting within the city, be it the police department, whether it be the open checkbook that we just heard about. Those transparency things shouldn't change. In the police department, you have the daily bulletin. It's a website that's open to all citizens to run and take a look at all speeding tickets, all arrests. That's open and available to anybody. And is there any thoughts of anything changing? Can you explain why the police reporting has changed this month versus previous months? And I just want to understand if there's going to be no major changes to the transparency of police information shared with our community.
Okay, yeah, that's a fair question. And so what I'd like to say on that is that what we've done is we're trying to consolidate the monthly report, which is a little bit shorter because, it had gone to about 6 pages worth were from police, part of the police item. And so that's one reason we started putting a link in, just to have less in the report, what's in the physical report that I submit. What we can do though, yes, the chief has consolidated the way he has more numbers, more statistics in there versus kind of the other one told a story a little bit more. The report is for y'all. Whatever format y'all think is the best format and for the citizens, we can certainly get it out there. There's certainly not anything to hide or any kind of lack of transparency we're trying to put in there. So we're glad to make those modifications. I'll get with the chief. He's not at this meeting tonight. Deputy chief is here. I know he's here in our comments. We could certainly modify that, but if we were trying to be more concise with the report, what we can do so this report doesn't get too many pages. What I was always afraid of when we started doing the reports is it would become a 30-page document, then nobody reads it.
Again,
And so we started this, during COVID to keep y'all up to date. And we can certainly modify it, but it is something, and all staff knows this, we modify this report from time to time to make it more concise. Excellent feedback. We're glad to make any modifications, and we can either do it, whatever y'all's preference is, whether it's in the report or through the link. But we're glad to have a format that's not so what I call mechanical.
well, I appreciate the feedback. I understand whatever is appropriate from numerous inputs. Please make the changes as you see fit. But much like my grandfather used to check the obituaries to see if he was still alive, I check the daily blotter, the daily bulletin to see if I've been arrested. So I mean, it's
Sure.
just a matter.
Fair enough.
I need to know what's happening in the city of Dunwoody. Second item, if I may, it's also another item that is really not listed this month. The 2024 budget has $1 million allocated for turf renewal or turf at Peachtree Middle School with a partnership with the DeKalb County school system. In May, you gave us an update stating that you had quotes, or at least one quote, and more quotes were coming in the month of May. And we have not heard any feedback whatsoever on where we are on that turf project, where the quotes were, what was the numbers. And it seems like this project has stalled. So I'm trying to ask if you can give us an update at the next meeting as to where we are on that project.
Glad to do that.
Awesome. Thank you.
Anybody else? Go ahead. Catherine, go ahead.
Thank you. Eric, I'm curious as to how you're getting your attendance count for your events. Are you using Placer AI? Or?
Yes. Yes, it is.
Okay, so
That's what it's from.
it's a pretty good count.
Pretty good count. And then, also, the park staff has, looked at the size of the crowds long enough to kind of have an idea as well, but it's primarily through the Placer system. And, we're enjoying the use of that as a tool, and we'll learn more about it as time goes on, but it's pretty accurate.
That's good. All right. The DOT award for safety projects, I know that was anticipated. Do you want to talk about where that'll end up?
Yeah, what I'd like to do is have Michelle come up and talk a little bit about that, that from the public works aspect and talk about the safety program. Michelle, I know Michael's has, excuse me, yes.
So unfortunately, I'm not quite sure about that. I don't have that information and Michael is not here today, but I can get that information back to you guys.
Thanks. We're excited to receive it. And then my last question is about police unfilled slots, if you want to just keep us up to date on what we're.
Sure. Let me get y'all an update for that. I can send you an email on that because it's a constant, something we constantly work on. And I will say a couple of points on the police portion, which is, our standards are much higher. Some of the surrounding cities may not have any vacancies, but we have a higher set of standards, as was mentioned earlier. And that's for two reasons. I mean, mainly it's for safety of the existing officers. We want to be sure whoever we have in the field can back up the officer. I'm sure every police officer could tell you in a former jurisdiction they were in where somebody kind of abandoned them and then they're on their own. That's not the design. It's not the design here in Dunwoody. Earlier tonight while we were in our meeting, I don't know if y'all saw, we had 4 or 5 responses up the road going up for a choking, 18-month-old was choking. And so we were able to get there. The ambulance arrived very quickly. But we also have, because of the investment that y'all put into the police department, the suction device to help with people for choking. So we do have certain life-saving equipment in our police cars. We're not EMTs, but we do have certain equipment. But having said that, let me get a report for you and for the entire council for that matter, that shows where we are. You know, every now and then, unfortunately, somebody does leave as well. And as we've historically seen, you know, sometimes people are leaving to get out of police work and not necessarily go to another jurisdiction. I feel where we are compensation wise with our officers, with our program for, if you live in the city of Dunwoody, for the stipend, our health benefits are second to none. There's no doubt about that. And our retirement portion is very good. And so we do track all that very closely. It's all a team effort. And I will put a plug in for all the staff in terms of the quality of staff that we have here, the departments. We all work as a team to try to make sure these benefits are excellent and that we have good retention. That's something we try to focus on, is retaining those officers once we put the investment in. And Mayor, to your point earlier, not everybody makes the program. They don't make the first cut, and sometimes they don't make it through the training process either. They'll get eliminated somewhere along the way. Our standards are very high, but it tries to keep us out of trouble when it comes to what the actual little law is today. So hopefully that answers your question, and I'll get you that information.
Thank you.
And we'll get you the information on the GDOT piece too. I apologize. I don't want to misquote anything on
Sure,
that.
thank you.
Tom.
Yeah, Eric, I'd just like to clarify one more thing regarding the city finances. As far as the timeliness of the reports, and I think there's some confusion. So I don't know if Richard could answer this better. Sorry to get you back up here, Richard. There's a question about, and so the monthly financial reports are produced and available to the public throughout the year, correct? As they're completed, as the books are closed on a month, those are, and typically when are those available?
We target the 20th calendar day after
After the close of the month. Okay, so but the comprehensive annual report is something different, and that's what gets reported to the state finance office. That's the after the comprehensive audit. Those aren't due, I believe, until June 30th to the state. And there's a reason for that, because a comprehensive audit takes time. We need to make sure that all of the invoices and everything has time to be received, processed, closed, audited. And so, but everything that we're doing as far as those reports is meeting the state guidelines, correct?
Correct, yes.
All right,
yes.
I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Sure.
John.
Yeah, one more final question regarding the police ambassadors. Are they able to write tickets, like parking tickets?
Yeah, let me have our
Oliver.
No, they're not.
Come up and we can
Yeah,
answer
and-
questions.
And
It's for
DC,
the,
if
on
you'll-
the record.
Yeah, if you'll go through a little bit, just real quick on your ambassadors. We have 2 now. I think you've hired. And tell a bit more about the program, because it's an exciting program that we're doing. It's a new phase for us, and it's something that we can maybe expand more in the future. But right now we have 4 positions, but will you go into that in more detail?
Sure.
What they're gonna do and how they'll assist you?
Essentially, think of a public safety officer that has the ability to help stranded motorists, take lower level reports where there is no potential for conflict because they're obviously unarmed. They're not equipped with anything to defend themselves with. So we would send them to, for instance, the stolen cell phone, lost cell phone, those kind of things, stolen tag. And they will certainly be incredible force multipliers with their trucks that have the emergency equipment to sit behind vehicles, for instance, that need to be towed. And we may wait on a tow truck, or we need more lights out on XYZ street or the interstate to help with that. We typically don't want them to be on the interstate, but again, it's the same thing. If we don't have enough hero trucks, that might be one of those resources we can employ. There are no plans right now for them to write tickets. There are some agencies that allow that. I think that's one of those possibilities down the road, but right now we're coming up with a great program that, a lot of things will develop as we go, and we'll constantly reevaluate it to make it the best program there is.
Thank you, Deputy Chief. Can I do a follow-up question on something you just
Yes, sir.
said, though? You said that they're able to call the tow truck.
No, they would sit basically on a car that we may have to tow
Okay.
until the tow truck can get there for us to not tie up an officer the entire
Yeah,
time.
I was hoping the answer was yes, they could write tickets, because we're having problems
Yes.
at the Air Public Laundry, but
Mhm.
we're having problems near our schools
Mm.
in tow zones and side streets where they're just jamming our traffic parking, so parking tickets. I'm just.
Sure, and I see
I
that.
was trying to see if those new officers could
Right.
write tickets and enforce the the school zones where they're,
Yes, sir.
Or
blocking.
just issue warnings, like
Well,
if they
and
could,
again,
if they
anything.
What
could,
we're trying to do right now is to have them get into a situation where there's really not a potential for conflict.
Gotcha.
Because, people will not be too happy getting, even if it's a parking citation. So that's kind of the.
but
the
they
implement-
could, I assume I guess maybe not. They couldn't sit there and let people know that just, I
Sure.
guess we all will figure it out. Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
So since this is a new program and I know we have our police training officers, who are these two new employees? How are they being trained? What is their training looking like?
So we essentially have a 40-hour training program that'll be handled by various people from our police training unit. Lieutenant Feck's actually driving a big part of this program. We have, for instance, our fleet maintenance coordinator, JB Tate. He's going to be doing a lot of things to educate them on how to do the tire changes and, all those kind of things. But, just again, it's a work in progress. But we expect them to be extremely busy to where there's not going to be any of this downtime that they'll be able to sit around a whole lot because all the other agencies that have started a similar program, all they're doing is telling us that they really work a lot.
It's the kind of thing where, because one of the examples that has come up in lots of places I've been is that we've had to pull an officer out of the field to come in because someone's lost their wallet.
Correct.
And they want to report because they need it or, for future potential identity theft. That's the kind of report you envision them taking, right?
That is correct, ma'am.
So that no longer a certified officer will have to come to City Hall to take the report.
That's the idea.
Or somebody's Amazon packages are stolen off the front porch.
Absolutely. Those
Okay.
kind of things. And then we can utilize that marked patrol car out there for more patrolling.
Okay, that's what we'd like.
Okay.
Eric, on the Georgetown Gateway project, it said substantially finished on this week. I think it said. Is that substantially accurate? It says, the Georgetown Gateway items and finishing the pavement markings, street signs, and remaining ground cover. The 15th is Friday, I think. Do you have an update?
Right, yeah, that's the latest update that I have from on that project. But yes, that should be, coming close to, well, again, a substantial completion, not everything will be completely done, but substantial completion where the public sees for the most part that project is complete. There'll still be a few things, some pavement marking, street signs, and some ground cover to go in out there. Any kind of plantings, this is not necessarily the worst time of year, but almost the worst time of year to finalize planning until we get into the fall. So that's where we are there. I know it's been a long, somewhat painful process, Mayor, to get that project complete. But it is, it does look nice and it will be completed very shortly.
All right, and I don't know if there's anybody here that can answer this from Public Works, but Adams was scheduled to be paved and all their side streets were paved and the equipment left. Do you have any idea, Adams Road?
No, I
Okay.
don't, but I can get.
All right, we
information
probably
back for
should
you.
find that out. It sounded like we have done 13 of 20 streets, I think is
That's
what
right.
it said, or miles, whatever it said.
Yes,
So
streets.
potentially, it's just confusing the neighbors, but also some neighbors complained that the equipment was sitting there for weeks.
That's
And so
right.
it's possible we just moved the equipment and it's coming back, but I said I'd ask, I've asked. Thank you.
I do know that they are coming back in, and so we'll get a schedule of what that looks like.
Okay.
And get that information to you guys.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Anybody else? Thank you all for the report. Before we go on, I'd like to recognize a couple of Boy Scouts that are here with us tonight. If you want to stand up, say your name, your troop name, and what badge you're working on, that's all I ask. You don't have to say anything else. Okay. Thank you very much for being here. All right. Next, I believe that Jessica needs to read this because it's a public hearing.
The next item is item number 3, and it's the first read, review and consideration of a text amendment to amend chapter 16 to provide streetscape design standards for certain areas of the city. Allegra.
All right, thanks, everyone. So, Councilman Seconder requested updated streetscape standards around Jet Ferry, and so staff worked with design firm Kimley Horn to provide updated streetscape concepts for that area. So this proposed text amendment would require any future development to implement the streetscapes. And the comprehensive plan recommends making the larger Jet Ferry area more bike and pedestrian friendly. So this is keeping in line with those goals, as well as tying into the planned Mount Vernon site path that would connect into Dunwoody Village and is part of the Trail Master Plan. So we have existing streetscape requirements located in our land development regulations, and those are for arterial and collector streets as well as local streets. And then Dunwoody Village and Perimeter Center have their own streetscape requirements in the zoning ordinance. There's a couple of spots in the code that mandate streetscape requirements. So amongst some other triggers, streetscape requirements are triggered by adding parking spaces, structural improvements that sort of increase the value of existing buildings, new buildings or substantial building additions, and a change in use, that results in a significant increase in traffic generation. So the proposed streetscape for the Jet Ferry area would include 12-foot site paths with 5-foot landscape buffers, except for adjacent to residences on Mount Vernon Road, where only a regular 6-foot sidewalk would be required, along with the 5-foot landscape strip. And the 6-foot sidewalk is our standard for residential areas. It would also tie into similar requirements on the north side of Dunwoody Club Drive in Sandy Springs. So their updated streetscape requirements would include 6-foot sidewalks and 8-foot bike lanes, as well as 6-foot landscape strips. And they also would add parallel parking along Dunwoody Club Drive. And their requirements are similar to ours. They would be triggered by massive redevelopment, so they're not currently existing in that area. So this graphic shows an overview of the proposed streetscape. So you can see that there are wider sidewalks sort of around the general triangle in the middle of the page, and then the trees around it indicate the proposed landscape strips. And then here's close-ups of the sections for each of the streets. And so you can see that for Dunwoody Club Drive, on the right-hand side, that's what's currently existing in Sandy Springs. And then all of the other ones are what would happen if there were to be redevelopment and the streetscape requirements would be triggered. And so staff is recommending approval on this, and the Planning Commission also recommends approval on this. They voted at their July 9th meeting. It was a unanimous vote, and they also had a discussion around the measurements of the different streetscape components, the triggers for redevelopment, the required right-of-way, and the comparable plans for Sandy Springs. So I'm available for any questions.
Okay, unless there's an objection, I will open the public hearing, and there will be 10 minutes per side. Up to 10 minutes per side. You'll just approach the front, introduce yourself. If you are for these design changes, please approach the front. And you can line up if you're here to speak for it. And then we'll have the against side after. Just introduce yourself slowly so Jessica can hear your name, please, or you can give her a card with your name on it after if you want. Go ahead. And is the clock ready with the 10 minutes? Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
Good evening. My name is Jason Metzger, and I live in Oxford Chase, Oxford Chase subdivision, which is right down the street from this area. And so I frequent the commercial shopping in that area, regularly. I try to either walk or ride my bicycle when I go there. It's about half a mile from the top of my subdivision along Mount Vernon Road. And I can tell you it's not a very pleasant bicycle ride right now. Most of that stretch of Mount Vernon doesn't even have shoulders, at least going towards the commercial areas. So I think, I just wanted to speak strongly in favor of the change. I know this is just for the kind of the triangle, the commercial triangle itself, but I think, you know, that extension of the Mount Vernon side path is very important. We'll encourage people to use alternate forms of transportation to get to these shopping centers. And studies have shown that people that use, you know, either walk or bicycle frequent local shopping more often, and so we'll keep more money in the community and also make us healthier. So again, I'm strongly in favor of it. I would recommend looking at the decel lane if you're heading westbound on Mount Vernon, just after Mount Vernon and Dunwoody Club Drive split off right there in front of the Chase. I don't think that's necessary. It's also been shown that reducing the width of the roads slows traffic and improves pedestrian safety. So look at shortening or removing that. Also would recommend re-engaging with Sandy Springs, because I don't think parallel parking on Dunwoody Club is a very good idea, especially with all the parking lots in that area. And I'll turn over to the next speaker, but I appreciate all you guys are doing to accelerate the build out along Mount Vernon in general. And I really would love the day where I could, you know, ride my bicycle along the side path from the Williamsburg shopping area all the way to the village. I mean, that would just be amazing and bring out so many more families. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, you can see how much time is remaining, I presume.
Anybody else? Well, I have 7 minutes. I don't know what to do with myself.
There's no rule
I
that you
bet you
have to
do.
use it all.
My name is Bob Dallas, and I want to thank you for having the public hearing. Just by way of background, in order for you to understand why I reached the conclusion I do. I serve on the Vision Zero Network Board. It's a national board that focuses on that, if you're all familiar with it. I also served 12 and a half years as a DeKalb County Planning Commissioner, and also served 10 plus years as a Dunwoody Planning Commissioner. I also currently serve on the, as a co-chair for the Atlanta Regional Commission Safety Committee, and we meet quarterly to talk about things safety throughout the region. I also serve on the MAD Georgia board, the Mothers Against Drunk Driving board. I was also chair of the PEDS organization that dealt with pedestrian safety throughout the state of Georgia. And I also served as director for 8 years of the Governor's Office of Highway Safety. Once again, I say that because my voice is equal to anybody else's voice from Dunwoody. No, this is not a word better. But having said that, I feel it's important for you to understand why I say what I do. This plan improves safety. And to me, that's the key and most important thing. I mean, we all drive through Dunwoody streets, and you've heard comments on people perhaps speeding, but there's a whole lot of other behaviors that occur that humans do. They make mistakes, they make poor decisions. So by building out this infrastructure, it'll make it safer for all of us, for the vulnerable road users, to the drivers, really anybody who travels in Dunwoody and lives here. Secondly, and I say this having a few kids, it's for families. And I think that's really important, because I hope not only now, but forever, Dunwoody is considered a family-friendly city. And I think this really helps to focus on the fact that we can have our families, whether you're 8 months, 8 years old, or 80 years old, to be able to use these facilities. And I will point out that the communities that are nearby, whether it's Dunwoody Club Forest, Brook Farm, all those down Peachtree, will have access to this. That'll make it a destination place that you can either drive to safely, walk to safely, or cycle to safely. Now, as I mentioned, Liz and I raised 4 boys here. And I put it in simple terms. If you've ever had the opportunity to walk your kids with a stroller, we did a lot of that. Try crossing somebody going the opposite direction with a stroller. Somebody has to get off the sidewalk if it's not wide enough. And I think by the plan that we look at here, it's setting a stage for ensuring that families who have kids and actually other people who may have handicaps that need a wheelchair or something of that nature can actually use the facilities safely and effectively. And I will say this will increase property values. And whether it's this plan or other plans that we have, we know, we've seen it throughout the region, that when these facilities are put in, our property values increase. Why? Because families love this. And I will point out this, more than one of us are aging in place. I dare say that our hope is, and I really define success in 1 of 2 ways. when a kid first learns how to walk and how long you can continue to walk. Well, if you're aging in place in Dunwoody, which I think is a great thing, ask anybody who has ever gone to a doctor what that doctor will tell that person. Walk, walk, walk. Why? Because it maintains your health. It maintains your mobility. It maintains your mental faculties. So it's the right thing to do to help people have the facilities so that they can maintain better health. And I will point out, it's good for business. Now, how do I know that? Well, we've seen it throughout the region and many other states where when these kinds of facilities are put in, business thrives. And you don't have to look far to see that around here. Look at Peachtree Quarters, what they're doing. Look at Alpharetta. Look at Sandy Springs, Duluth, Chambly, all the cities around us that have taken the initiative to put in these kinds of facilities because they know it's really good for business. And I'll close with this. This is very consistent with the citizen-approved plan that we have in place with our multi-use path plan throughout the city of Dunwoody. And let's never forget, that was a fully vetted plan that reached out to people that never before would come to meetings because we reached out to them directly. And I congratulate this city council and your predecessors for having done that. Because oftentimes, especially those with families, coming to a meeting at 6 p.m. on an evening is really tough. But if you have it at alternate times, like on a Saturday, or if you have access through the internet to be able to give your opinion as to what you think, then that's a great thing. And that's what that plan reflects. So with that, I'm a very strong supporter of this plan and would encourage this board to vote in favor of it. And so then now down the road, we know what it's going to look like in the future, and hopefully we'll get there sooner than later. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak for this? All right, that doesn't matter because there's no developer to save the time or anything. All right, if anyone would like to speak against it, approach the microphone. Is when the clock says 10 minutes, Mr. Hickey, you can start. I think they're resetting it now.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay.
I'm Bob Hickey, a resident of Dunwoody. I live up the street in the Brook Farm subdivision. I've traveled this triangle multiple times per day. And at times, it's probably one of the bigger traffic congestion areas in the whole city of Dunwoody. The only thing maybe worse is round perimeter getting on 285. There's lots of times that the traffic coming up Jet Ferry to access Mount Vernon in the morning backs up traffic from Jet Ferry on Mount Vernon all the way to the light coming out of my subdivision at Brook Farm. And that's probably about a mile. Okay, and times in the afternoon, it backs up traffic considerably. So without some knowledge of the traffic count, okay, I think it's a bad decision to try to put in anything that would increase traffic congestion, or to say it another way, to do anything that wouldn't improve traffic congestion. Now, again, as I said, I travel that area multiple times per day. I've never been to Chick-fil-A with a bike following me, okay? I've never been to CVS, okay, and anybody up there on a bicycle, okay? It's people in the car, okay? This aging in place stuff, okay, is us old guys driving our cars for the most part. But yes, I try to walk 5 times a week, okay? But I don't want more bike lanes and more stuff that would slow down traffic on that area. And the parking spaces on Dunwoody Club Drive, I mean, is absolutely crazy. But again, so I'm a strong no without more input as to how this does not improve traffic congestion. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there there's time remaining if anyone else wants to speak against this? Seeing none, unless there's an objection, I close the public hearing and invite Allegra back for questions from council. And I want to make sure I understand, just before I let them ask questions, the parallel parking spaces are on the Sandy Springs plan.
Correct.
But do we know, like, if they're thinking the whole center is going to be knocked down and rebuilt, do you know what triggered that? I'll find out.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I'll try to find out. Thank you. Okay. All right. Questions, comments, Catherine?
Let me follow up on the parking. While it is in the Sandy Springs plan, you're saying it is not going to be in our plan, correct?
Correct. We're not proposing parallel
Okay,
parking.
because that is not a good idea. Okay, thank you.
Tom.
Yeah, thanks, Allegra. I just have a quick question on the triggers for this. One of them is the 20% increase in traffic generation based on a change of use. So change of use, we're not talking a full redevelopment. So are we, or is a rezoning considered a change of use?
We're talking about full redevelopment. If you're referencing the rezoning for that parcel that's happening at the moment, that would not trigger.
That would not, okay, that's
They're
specific of what I was looking for.
Those are unrelated projects.
Okay, and the 20%, just for curiosity, is that based on current use versus projected new use? So for example, right now, that particular shopping center is pretty much empty. There's not a lot of wouldn't take much to generate a 20% increase in traffic there. I know they're not proposing a redevelopment, but just for clarification. So when is it 20% based on when the application's filed versus the new use? Is that how that's measured?
If y'all don't know the answer, you
Yeah.
don't have to answer it right now. Go ahead.
I can quickly talk to that. It's not so much about the zoning itself, because zoning can be multiple different uses that are allowed in a zoning district. This is for when the business license is filed, or this is for when the land disturbance permit is filed for the actual build out of this, or the construction permit. How it works is we have a book. It's from the Institute of Traffic Engineers. It's called the Trip Generation Manual. And it has lists for every land use under the moon, pretty much has like lists of trip generation. That's sort of an average amongst the United States. And that's what we use. So if it changes from a use that has a little trip generation to a use with a lot of trip generation, then this might apply.
Okay, but is the baseline based on the use on the day it's filed? I'm just curious.
Based on what's currently in place. Yeah.
Okay, that's all I have.
Catherine, sorry, I
Yes,
turned my
if
head.
we as a city wanted to put in covered bus stops, this is a triangle that has several MARTA bus stops. Is that something that we could put into this design standard?
And that's like the design standards are much more generic than this.
Okay.
This is more like the basic, the foundations of this, and then additional items like street furniture, like benches or bus shelters may come into play, sort of if they're needed. Or we can do this separately. We would do this separately.
You would do it separately.
So it would be done separately. It would be a public works department that would lead this, but that's not codified.
Okay, I'm just thinking in terms of spacing as we look at sidewalks, et cetera, but no, you think no. Okay.
Go ahead.
So maybe just to kind of clarify what it is we're looking at, and I think I've got it understood, but just to make sure. We're looking at changing, if this is redeveloped, what would have to be basically built adjacent to the street.
Correct.
So better bike ped access, benches, trees, beautification. The actual function of the roads around it is not addressed by this, correct?
Correct.
So that would be a separate step if we wanted to say, someone mentioned eliminating a decel lane. We would need to look at that independently. I've heard a recommendation of a roundabout in that kind of funky intersection. That would be, we'd have to coordinate with Sandy Springs on that. That would be something different than this. We're just looking at the adjacent.
Correct.
So it would be great to improve traffic through here, but that to me is independent of this particular action at this time. Is that right?
Yes, yes,
All right,
those are
thank you.
separate items.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
John, sorry.
Thank you, Madeline. Has this project, this is now separate and new. This was not part of the original path and trail plan and study, right?
Correct. This is separate. This is new.
And what type of outreach and or discussions did we have with the community to make sure that this is appropriate and fits the desires of the community?
We reached out to several members of the community. Mr. Sackender was joined us. We actually walked and Rob joined us. We actually walked around that entire triangle with several members of the staff and some of the members of the community.
One of the things I'm looking at is when I look at Jet Ferry, why is 24 feet of concrete required on that street? How many walkers or bikers are you using? You have 12 feet of concrete sidewalks on each side of Jet Ferry. To me, that seems like overkill, big overkill, and I don't understand why. Does the studies say
So-
that?
So 12-foot site paths are our standard width for site paths, excuse me, that we're using in the city. And the reason why it would be on both sides of the road is that we don't know there's the shopping center on the left-hand side and on the right-hand side, and we don't know which one might redevelop first. So we're sort of covering our bases, so to speak, so that there would be the access on either or both sides of the street, depending on the redevelopment timeline.
Would that be then squeezing Jet Ferry in? As far as the lane widths, does that change at all?
That's not my understanding. There's a
Okay.
fair amount of width and right of way existing there.
One of the things I'm seeing as I drive through Georgetown is that trucks have a really hard time turning into some of these, parking lots in various places because of the lanes. And I'm not sure if it's decel lanes that are taken away or what's happened in Georgetown, but I was worried then at both shopping centers, not so much on Mount Vernon because they have the decel lane, but more on Jet Ferry. If we were squeezing it in, I'd have concerns over trucks and the entrance and exits of those. But you're saying that's not changing.
Correct.
And then my real concern comes down to who pays for all of this. I mean, I was at the meeting for the rezoning possibilities for branch properties and that redevelopment for that project. And that is that entire triangle. The entire triangle was up for discussion, except for maybe the corner for the bank is. And I don't know if we are putting in a regulatory change that puts the financial responsibility for all of this infrastructure onto the branch properties if they come back and make a zoning change big enough of impact, which again, Tom got to the question and I'm not sure, does a rezoning do it? Does a rezoning not do it? Does a building change happen? What if the McDonald's on the other sides becomes something else and they need to do some construction? Does the McDonald's, whoever is that out parcel, do they pay for all of Jet Ferry on that side of the road? Do they pay for both sides of the road? I don't understand the impact on this. But to me, it seems like we are really having a meeting last week with a developer who doesn't know what they can do with the property they have, and a community that doesn't have a vision of grandeur of major change, but yet we're putting a regulatory change on the books, which puts a financial burden on the future developer. It's, again, that developer is going to pay price. The developer is then going to raise the prices of the rents, and it's going to affect us. So in the long way, one way or the other, we're going to be paying for all of this. I'm just not sure that, 24 feet of concrete on Jet Ferry is appropriate for me. I think that's overkill. But again, I'm still studying the issue, so thank you.
Just for point of order, John, I did meet with the developer and I can have a one-on-one with you later, but I'll let Richard answer your questions.
Yeah, ultimately, if the developer changes much of anything, except for the meeting last week, he was just trying to change the zoning because he wants a use that is not allowed in the neighborhood shopping district. But if he redevelops the whole site, he would be responsible for everything along his frontage. So like if the McDonald's on the other side of the street changed, they would only be responsible for their frontage.
And like, for example, Buffalo Wild Wings in the mall parking lot, they did their frontage on Hammond, correct? But
Yep.
they didn't do all of Hammond.
Correct.
And they didn't do any of, I don't think they did any of Ashford Dunwoody, but maybe they did.
That's correct.
Just Hammond,
Yeah.
just that stretch of Hammond. So we have a lot of precedent in that part of it.
Yeah, and we have the same rules in the village.
Right.
So they have to do their frontage.
Right.
And that same developer did it on Ashford Dunwoody on their
Yes.
frontage,
Right.
branched it.
Yes.
And they just did it along their frontage. They didn't do the whole section of Ashford Dunwoody.
Correct.
Go ahead, Joe.
Well, I'd like to just back up and give the background of this intent. When I see full disclosure, it was almost 3 years ago that I asked for this to be done. 3 years. And I made a budget amendment in 2020, in October of 2021 to put in the 2022 budget, the money to do this. And now we're finally seeing it. So it's not if, but when. So I appreciate it getting here. I walk here, I live within, you know, a few hundred feet of this place. What I thought was, you know, I'm from Missouri. I was in the military. If it's not in the document, if it's not in our standards, then what is going to happen? Is it a gray area that we leave it to staff? Is it going to come to council? So there's this whole spectrum of how things happen in Dunwoody. And if it doesn't get to council, it needs to be in our code, and then staff executes. We give them the vision, we give the intent, great, and then staff noodles in the weeds, right? So I looked at this, what is the default? And I think the default was just the basic, like a 5-foot wide sidewalk. Is that correct? Right? So if there's new development, it's like, it's just the status quo. So what can we do there to make this on the publicly owned right of way transit? So we're not changing the widths of the roadway. We're not changing the roadway capacity. We're not changing the street design as far as motor vehicle goes. I do like, though, as a sidebar, I'd like to have another conversation with Sandy Springs. You know, a few years ago, we talked about the Jet Ferry Dunwoody Club Drive 4-way stop. And Sandy Springs was leading that project and had proposed a couple things way before I was on council. They were going to propose either a roundabout or a light, but I'd like to have another conversation with them about the safety issues with the crashes along Dunwoody Club Drive and what we can do along that side, working holistically with them. I'd love to have that conversation independent of this. And again, if it's not in a plan, then it just happens by default. And I wanted to have some type of plan, and the intent is to make it more pedestrianized, calming the traffic, but keeping the capacity the same, but letting people feel comfortable. That stretch of Jet Ferry, I don't feel comfortable even just walking across it if I'm going to Chick-fil-A over from Crema, you know, if I'm not crossing on a crossing. And of course, at the Jet Ferry, I'm playing chicken because people want to run me over in the pedestrian crosswalk. So I like, there's a lot of opportunity here. I think it's prime for development eventually. Maybe it's the next decade, but at least we'd have it here on the books. And then maybe we have public dollars that can build some of these facilities as we see fit. So, yeah. But that's what I was thinking, and I appreciate getting it here and just having it on the books for future triggers like we've done throughout our existence in the city. And I do have one minor question is that decel lane on the north, on the decel lane on Mount Vernon, as it's your westbound, right there in the corner from Dunwoody Club Drive, we're in the drawing, now it's not in the written code, but in the drawing it's showing we're going to keep that decel lane there, and we're going to push out and put the facilities further out. And I would just like to see if we can just look at that. Is it in the code? Do we ask for a change if we're amicable to removing that? Does it need to be changed in the code? Does it need to change in this graphic, or is it based on when we actually go and build this out? When would that happen? Question for staff or whatever. When would we look at that? When it come in to build it and do it?
And that's, we do like what we're doing with this text amendment is we're incorporating the streetscape into the code. It's not the only thing what we do. When a new development comes in, we look at decel lanes, we look at acceleration lanes, we look at we look at driveway design, we look at all of this as part of the permitting process. What this does today is it just incorporates the basic streetscapes, and then, you know, depending on right-of-way considerations and all, like, there will always be adjustments. So this is not part of the text amendment.
Okay. And I appreciate, when I start just reading the text of the code, you mentioned that it's a 6-foot wide sidewalk along residential. I get that because it's written, and that's the south side of Mount Vernon. That's the residential abutment, but the commercial side is that other way. So, all right, thank you very much, and I appreciate your help.
Okay. I think I understand the triggers, so I want to review them. And I have one question about them. Can you put it back on the screen, please? The little slide where it says,
The triggers.
yeah, please. Can you add it back on? Thank you. Okay. The 20%, I just have a question and it's the way my brain works, so I apologize. It feels like the 20% increase in traffic generation should probably be potentially based on when there was a tenant rather than when the building was empty. And Richard is saying that is correct. So I didn't think it made sense. It would could potentially discourage redevelopment of empty buildings, which we definitely don't want to do. In this case, this is in some ways aspirational, right? Because it would be triggered if the whole property was redeveloped, correct? Like they would have to, and that is not unusual in the development world. We've seen it, the biggest scale new development we've had is right here, right? I think, if someone correct me if I'm wrong. But way back when in Georgetown, Kroger did a big renovation years ago, and they had to make some improvements that we've since added to. I think there were some changes in somewhere in Dunwoody Village, and property owner had to make some changes. I'd like to think that if there was a big redevelopment, which we have no evidence, all they're asking for is to figure out how to use that one space. If there was a big redevelopment, there might be lots of changes that we agree to with the developer as a condition of rezoning, right? And that's when you look at what Sandy Springs might plan to do with the street parking and I don't know for sure, but I'm guessing on-street parking envisions a whole different use of the Kroger shopping center. I can't imagine. I mean, seriously, nobody's going to carry their grocery store to Jet Ferry. I mean, their groceries to Jet Ferry. And I'll find out if someone even knows anymore. But I think that the challenge we face with these kind of discussions and the discussions we've had is that they're very futuristic. We don't know if or when someone's going to redevelop a piece of property, and the sidewalk on both, or the whatever you want to call it, on both sides of Jet Ferry, it's just anticipatory of maybe something happening. As you probably know, I'm not a big fan of sidewalks to nowhere. And so we'd have to talk about it if the McDonald's should redevelop, how we handle that. But I think that in general, it's not a bad idea to have standards. I think traffic improvements come in discussions of when a development is actually going to impact traffic. And that's when you get the developer's cooperation. Just down the street at Publix, they built us a whole new public road, if I'm not mistaken, correct? And so I think that this is a little confusing because we don't really have a redevelopment of any property in this area unless someone knows something about the Kroger at Sandy Springs that I don't know. And if they could tell me, because it would change the potential use of the empty one in Dunwoody, I don't think we have any indication that this is happening immediately.
We're just anticipating that the area is ripe for redevelopment at some point in the future.
Right.
There's no current plans, and just to reiterate, the rezoning for that part is entirely separate from the text amendment that you all have before you this evening.
Right. And the bus stop question is a good one. That's a lot of bus stops right there. And we can talk about it. We've talked about it a little bit, getting some covered bus. We're kind of in a wherever, nowhere man's land with MARTA and bus stops. I will tell you that a year ago that MARTA said they were going to do a big analysis of all their stops, and these were probably in jeopardy for ridership, but I don't think they ever started as MARTA is apt to do. I don't think they ever started. But all that would, like the same property owner put a covered bus stop at the corner down the street as part of the redevelopment of that piece of property. So that's all true redevelopments of parcels, like knocking buildings down and rebuilding, trigger different things than the repurposing of a builder, of an interior of a building. So, all right. So I guess we will revisit this in 4 weeks, I guess. I don't know how this works. 2 weeks, 4 weeks, whenever. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Next is consent agenda. Anybody have any questions or comments? Okay. Go ahead, Catherine. Sorry, my head turns this way automatically tonight.
With the Americans with Disabilities Act, as our discussion last week, I want to applaud the staff for already putting that policy on the website. There's a tab top right so that the complaint form can be easily accessed. Thank you.
Very good. Joe.
This might be for Michelle. I didn't look too closely at the award of contract for the Village Crossroads, Village Gateway. Are they gonna, we already had the concept design. Do we have any council interaction with them at all when they're gonna be doing this? What does that timeline look like? What is it, just heads down, heavy engineering? Can you kind of explain the timeline process and the touch points real
Sure.
quick? Brief?
So we have gotten the concept approved, and so we'll be moving forward with preliminary engineering. We'll go through and we'll do a concept validation, just making sure that the original concept is still valid, and then we'll move to 30% plans. We will present that to council, so you will have an opportunity to review that 30% and provide comments.
I'm just a broken record, so you can just play this back. Again, if we could get rid of any curb cuts, negotiate how we phase it, right? We were talking about that, right? Is
Mhm.
like, could we just do the roundabout quickly at the north end? I'm just saying, right? Could we price out putting underground utilities between Dunwoody Village Parkway, Mount Vernon? Just saying. And maybe make 3 separate segments of building it out instead of 2 even. So anyway, thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody else?
Move to approve.
Moved by Tom,
Again.
second by Joe. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes. Thank you. All right, Cody Dallas. Come educate us about Marsh. Come educate us about Marsh Creek Basin.
See if I can't remember. Michael told me how to do this.
I bet somebody from IT can come help you if you need it. Or Jay, I can't see who's still here.
There we go.
Thank you.
Hey. Right, so we are proposing Cody Dallas Stormwater. Nice to see all of you, Mayor and City Council. We are proposing to perform a pilot study of Marsh Creek, and I'll tell you a little bit about it. So essentially, I think y'all are pretty familiar if you can follow the outline of where Marsh Creek is right here on the screen. We're essentially wanting to do a hydrology and hydraulic model and study. This study will provide a tool that will quickly that it'll allow us to quickly analyze capacity and determine whether upgrades are needed during pipe rehabilitation projects and replacements. Basically what this has come from is a lot of areas within Dunwoody are they're not super old, but they were definitely not built to the stormwater standards that we have today. They certainly weren't built when we had the amount of impervious that we have now, or under the conditions where we have the more frequent and intense large storms. I think July 24th, if I remember the date I get the calls, we had a storm that came through and it totally inundated a place that usually doesn't have problems. Old Springhouse Lane, right?
Yeah,
At the
right,
North
it's flooded, right.
Yeah. But at some point in that storm, we had a 6 inches per hour intensity, and that is above like 1,000-year event. So luckily that only happened for a short amount of time. And so we were, for those 2 hours, we're closer to like maybe a 200-year event, overall. But those are getting more and more frequent. And we do want to make sure as we are replacing these structures and we're doing rehabilitation projects, we're not just, lining and replacing the same size pipes with stuff that isn't going to meet the capacity needs that we want or need. And this project will be funded from the stormwater utility operating budget. And I think this will greatly benefit our CIP planning. So our capital improvement projects, we can quickly access the capacity data and prepare scenarios for rehabilitation, replacement. And one of my favorite things about this is we would be looking at including the easement requirements in the analysis, which is something that really slows down our process of getting these projects pushed forward. And I think that will greatly increase our planning potential here. So our staff recommendation is to authorize the allocation of up to $63,716 through the city's on-call design contract with Dewberry to complete the stormwater master model of the Marsh Creek drainage basin. And I have one of our engineers with Dewberry here today to help me answer any questions that y'all may have about this.
Catherine, do you have questions?
Yes, the study, it says you're going to look at non-city maintained conduits. So at the end of this study, are you going to share that with the owners of these conduits who likely believe that they're city owned?
That's a really good question.
I guess at least we'll have it in our possession should the question come up, but
this
this
would
is.
absolutely be, open to the public. I think maybe there may be some liability concerns if we do have these kind of, this information and we see a problem in this one area. I imagine that we would be able to reach out, that may be something that we have to ask Michael Smith about.
Right, maybe you want to consider it, but it's one system and all these blockages in places that we can't help. Then the end, people need to know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
John?
Cody, thanks for
Sorry.
the presentation. What do we have in place as far as the other basins are concerned? Sorry.
No, that's a great question. So actually, we did originally think of doing Marsh and Perimeter Creek, all kind of on the same side of Dunwoody. But we actually wanted to limit it down to be more representative of what Dunwoody is. So we've got parts of the Dunwoody the village overlay area district. And so we've got a little bit of commercial, limited private streets, lots of residential. So and this is the smallest basin. So we thought that this would be a really good representative project.
In other words, this is a starting point. This is the
Yes,
first one
yes.
that we're doing, and then from there, we may look on
Exactly.
it from there. As far as the data, I know that we do a lot of work GIS aspect of taking photos and measuring.
Yes.
And
Oh,
I
yes.
think we have a great system. Is there going to be a whole lot more of data input because of this, or is it just looking at the data that's there now?
We're making data enhancements. Basically, one of the deliverables is an updated geodatabase, I believe. And maybe Emma can, with Dewberry can explain a little bit more what changes or enhancements those would be.
Great, thank you. She can come up and explain if she'd like.
Yes, thank you for having me. Emma Bones with Dewberry. Yes, Cody's correct. One of the end results is an update of what we call like an enhanced database. As the pilot study, we're still going to work closely with Cody and the rest of the team to kind of figure out what will work best for the city and what they will use the most. But we can use that. We can do some automated cost estimating off of that to help with high level cost estimates. It will also include the pipe level of service for each and every city maintained pipe, so that you can see if it's meeting your level of service or if it's not, and then what scenarios, whether it's an upgrade or a rehab, could meet the desired level of service.
So at the end of the day, you'll have a lot of data, and you might have a list of trouble spots for replacement, and then you'll also have cost estimates as well as easement costs, it sounds like. So it'll be comprehensive for this area.
Yeah, and
Perfect.
yeah, and one of the reasons through the pilot study is it lets us shape all this to what is right for Dunwoody. It's very flexible at this point in time.
We've put lots of data into the GIS, including all of these things. So please use the data, enhance
Yeah.
the data, and go forward as far as I'm
The city of
concerned.
Dunwoody has an exceptional GIS database, I'd like
Thank
to
you.
say.
Go ahead, Stacy. Oh, Rob, okay.
So John brought up a lot of my points, but I guess one thing I do want to say, kind of, I like this project. And it'll be interesting to see what the results are, because I get on a periodic basis citizens reaching out with stormwater issues. And so I have to wonder if there's not just kind of a chronic, everything's not quite good enough. And other things have developed more. And I guess long-term, I would be interested, when we put in projects, we always make sure we're meeting current standards, but are there projects where we need to do something, even though we don't have an associated city project, just to make sure we're getting the water taken care of, so it's not impacting or damaging a citizen's property? So this is, I think, the first step in what is going to be a very long and involved analysis, probably down the road, and then a rather long-term expensive upgrade or a series of upgrades that might be needed. But it's probably something that's long overdue, honestly.
Sure, sure. And one thing that we've been doing to prepare to get to this point, and we're kind of lowering this cost up front here, is where we have been, through our inspection program, we have been gathering more and more GIS data. So the invert elevations and all the things that are needed to, flesh out something like this. There will be spots that are like a private system that we don't have those elevations for, that will be filling in some of the gaps there. So we can really understand what the implications are of, making these rehabilitations and all of that.
First, like Rob, I think this is a great project, and I feel like you guys were really trying to be proactive on figuring out what to do with all the water. So what's the timeline? How long is this going to take?
Well,
And I know it's a public works project, so.
Yeah, well, and please know that this is the pilot study, so but I'll let Emma kind of detail that.
Yeah, for the pilot study, we estimate 6 to 8 months. Usually one of the largest parts is the data gathering, but since you already have all that data, we can move pretty quickly to get that. Like I said, I think this one will be, it's worth to take a little extra time to work with Cody and the team to figure out what's going to work best. What rainfall events do we want to consider? Do you want to do cloudburst events or longer duration events, like a 24-hour, 48-hour kind of thing? So that'll take a little bit of time just to sort through, but what we found is it's really worthwhile to do this pilot, take the little bit of extra time, the extra couple of months to sort through that. And then you have a template for the remainder of the city, if there is an interest to do that.
And then my next question is, I mean, the Marsh Creek, I mean, it abuts Sandy Springs, right? And that water keeps going. So do we play nicely with them and share? I mean, have you had a conversation with your Sandy Springs counterpart? Like, hey, we're doing this. Are you?
Yeah, so far so good. We've had a good working relationship. Whenever we've had plenty of those types of conflicts where the Redfield subdivision does drain into the Twin Branches Way, I believe. And we've got Redfield, which does have several, minor detention ponds that are not up to standard of today, and flowing into a place that really just has no detention ponds whatsoever, and kind of just explaining the dynamics of how, the area has evolved to different residents. And I think we've gotten some really good conversations with, Sandy Springs residents. And I think, Catherine was on site with us for one of those. So yeah, I think so far, so good with that.
Oh, Tom, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Cody. Yeah, so when I first ran for office, I never thought so much of my time would be dedicated to stormwater. I mean, this is a major issue for the city, and so I share, I guess the excitement isn't the right word, but the optimism that hopefully this will be a worthwhile study for the city and produce good results. I did have questions about how the particular basin was selected. You've already kind of answered that. I'm hopeful that this is successful so that we can do the same study throughout the city and all the basins. I would just at this point like to request that the future basin studies maybe go in order of some sort of priority system where, hey, we know we have a lot of issues in this particular basin or this and attack those first. I can't speak for the entire city, but I can tell you that the Chattahoochee and Crooked Creek basins have a lot of concerns in that area. And so I would hope that, once this study is complete, if we decide to move forward in other areas, that we do that by priority. Catherine raised a question that I had about the public and the private. And what I would like to see Public Works do is, I know we have our extent of service for stormwater policy. But what I'd like, in anticipation of what might be proposed or the advice or recommendations we get out of this study, that maybe we get ahead of that and come up with some sort of game plan. Whereas if private systems are not up to the level of service that we expect, that we have a plan in place by the time this report is done to address that. Whether I don't know if there's a way throughout the study, in some of those cases, if it's appropriate, that the city take over some of those private systems. Because I think the biggest thing that I've dealt with is when someone finds out there's a stormwater going through their yard and that they're responsible for it, and they think, well, that's a city thing. No, that's a private. And it's very difficult to explain to people why it's a private, why it's a public. Especially if the current system maybe isn't living up to the level of service, but they're not seeing the problems yet. It might be really hard to explain to somebody, yeah, you've got to go spend, $40,000 to replace this pipe that you might not have even known was in your yard. So I want to make sure that we find out the best way of addressing that is takes into consideration the residents that might have the biggest impact for that. And as we go through this, we always hear about, a 25-year storm event, 100 years. It seems like we have a 100-year storm event every couple of years or every year. So I don't know how the term 100-year storm event is, if that's just semantics. But when I first heard it, it was so bad it only happens every 100 years, but they seem to happen. And again, maybe that's climate change, maybe that's impervious.
Percentile. It is like a misnomer.
So so I hopefully, as going through this process, we're maybe future proofing ourselves as well. Whereas I would err towards our level of service maybe being beyond what the minimum is, so that we are prepared to handle what'll probably be additional strains on the system. But I eagerly anticipate, or await the findings of this. And I hope this is something we can do. I know you mentioned that the funding for this was coming out of the utility. Do we still have, I don't know if there's any finance people here,
Jay?
any more of the CARES money,
Oh, the
ARPA.
ARPA,
the ARPA funds
that has been allocated. We have.
to existing projects?
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
All right. I was just curious if that was a potential source. All right. Thank you. I can't wait to see how this goes.
Is it okay if this is on consent? Anybody object? I have one quick statement.
Yes.
What Tom said about water being such a big thing, every mayor I know, at least with any development, believes that this is all we're going to be doing for more than the next decade or so. That stormwater is going to take up an extraordinary amount of time and money in developed areas anyway. So I think this is a good step to sort of get us prepared for what's probably coming with these on again, off again rains, and just an aging infrastructure. I don't necessarily agree with what Councilman Lambert said about private versus public, but that's a ways down the road. So thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Rachel Waldron. And so this will be on consent next time, Cody. Oh,
Okay, got me for the rest of the night. I'm so sorry.
no, that's
Good
right.
evening. I know it's 90 degrees outside, but it's holiday lights time. So as you know, this is one of our favorite events, that we do with the city. We're excited to bring this again another year. As a background, I think everyone's familiar, but in 2020, holiday lights began. It stemmed from COVID, as just a way to bring the community together, in a self-guided, safe way. We started with a small display, and each year it's grown and grown. We're very pleased with that. And last year we actually took home the award for the Georgia Recreation and Parks Association District 6 Outstanding Special Event Award. So we're very excited to have this back. We now see, using our wonderful placer data, around 27,000 guests over the course of the month, which is great. We're able to take a deep dive from the hours of 5 to 10 p.m. in December. So we've got some really good numbers for this event in particular. Going through the proposal for this year, the theme will be Arctic Safari. We always try to pick something that's fun for kids, really engaging. And we're really excited about what Chitwood Studios gave us this year. So to start, when you come in the park of the main entrance off North Peachtree, you're greeted with a stained glass style sign. That's the bear picture you're seeing. Let's say Arctic Safari. And then what they're calling grand pillars of lights, which are about 13 feet tall. And each of those will feature a 3-foot lighted snowflake. And the idea is, as cars are driving in, this will be on both sides of Georgia Way. Pillars will be on both sides. Pillars will be on both sides, yep. And it kind of illuminates kind of the area as you're driving in. As you continue to the right, kind of between where we have our trail and where the start of the EV charging stations is this green truck, the Safari vehicle. And that will be covered with many LED lights. And then as you continue, last year where we had our big snow globe, that's where this train will be. So 36-foot long train. It'll have Arctic animal theme passenger car. And folks and families will be able to stand near the front of the engine on all those stairs that you're seeing for the photo opportunity. Again, very, very interactive pieces. We're excited about that one. Mega tree, we're all very familiar with the mega tree. This is our picture from last year. Same thing, it'll have our largest tree in the middle, 2 trees next to it. And then we're also going to add faux igloo geodomes. So last year we tried to do a lot around the mega tree with like the faux fire pits and kind of some seating areas to really make that sort of an area people can sit. You can watch the show with the music and everything. So bringing that back. And then throughout this space, you'll see ice shapes, Arctic animals. So think, snow owls, fox, deer, maybe a narwhal. We're seeing if we can get something narwhal related, polar bears, that sort of thing. Our playground entrance across from the skate park. Last year, this is where we had our D arch. This will look like what they're calling a pop-up book. So as you walk through, you see this kind of white and blue snowflake silhouette that you'll walk through. A great photo opportunity for everyone coming in this way. And then as you continue to the playground, you'll walk through illuminated archways, big 10 feet wide over the path as you head into the playground. Glow areas back. I know this was popular last year with the seesaw. Those are 2 of our team members enjoying the seesaw there in that picture. But we're adding to it. We're adding glowing cubes, chairs, swings, and then what they're calling a party penguin. I don't have a picture of him yet, but he'll be on a 10-foot tall pedestal, kind of greeting everybody in this area. And this will be right there in the playground where our snow factory was last year. So great spot for kids. Again, very popular. I know we had a lot of questions about that last year from Stacy. Yeah. And then our illuminated safari outpost. So this will be a little bit of snow, a little bit of fog, kind of mixture. And this is as you're walking past the penguin area, as you're coming up down the Dunwoody Trailway to the Mega Tree viewing area. That's where this will be located. Kind of where the start of our playground stream is. Our Forest Path and Ice Palace. This is what we call the deck walkthrough. That's where the current blue big Adirondack chair from last year, that's where that is right now. We'll move that, and that will be an Ice Palace throne. Again, great viewing deck area for everybody. Some more Arctic animals in there for the kids to take pictures with. And this is just kind of an overview of everything. Those were just some of the highlights I pulled out. We'll have what we do every year with our crepe myrtles will be wrapped in lights. Our bushes will be wrapped in lights. Everything will be very green, blue, white pastels, kind of this Arctic kind of chilly feeling. The same project budget as we've had last few years, $80,000. Which with a 10% contingency, which we're thankful we've never had to use, would bring us to about $88,000. And this is something that we allocate every year out of our operating budget. It's something that we love to do on the rec side. We're excited to bring this back again. And now I'll have any questions you may have for me.
Anybody have questions? John?
I always enjoyed as you're entering into the park, the hanging
Yeah.
lights.
Mhm.
The hanging lights, I think, are gone based on what you're telling me on these 13.
These will be these pillars now. Yeah, they'll have the same kind of illuminated feel. But those are the pillars with the snowflakes.
With the snowflakes, right?
Yep.
I'm just wondering how much illumination we're getting out of that on the entryway. I don't know. I always enjoyed the long lights.
Yeah.
That was you're coming through. It was well illuminated so that on North Peachtree, you could sort of see that
see,
there's an
yep.
entrance of something special
Exactly.
happening here. So I'm just hoping that this does the same thing.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Excited to see it. I know snowflakes are big right now.
Mhm. Joe?
I'm just happy to have the opportunity to have that sense of place, the photo op, everything else. It's just so awesome. It just helps the community. I think for a separate conversation, you look at I was just at an event on Friday, a couple of our folks here, the mayor of Greenville spoke in Sandy Springs last Friday. Super awesome what they've done there. It's just incredible. He's been mayor for like 35 years, just keeps on getting reelected. They have a outdoor skating rink. It's in the winter time, but it's sponsored by a bank.
Mhm.
And so and it might be related to the next thing too, about funding or working with Discover Dunwoody, as far as partnering corporate or community partners on funding some of these things and helping having skin in the game and contribute to those things.
We do. So last year, I want to say we were between the 3,000 and 5,000 mark with sponsorships specifically for holiday lights. We have had an overwhelming request already for people who want to be involved in this. And that definitely offsets the cost when we do opening night with the funnel cakes and the hot cocoa and everything. That's really what that helps us put on with those sponsorships. Yeah,
Great. Thanks.
sure.
Okay.
I thought of you when I saw the party penguin.
Anybody else? Consent. Thank you, Rachel. And I look forward to being able to use data to evaluate all this
Yeah,
now that
love
we
it.
have the ability
Yeah.
to do that. I think it's very exciting. I think it's part of the holiday tradition here in Dunwoody. And we appreciate that. And I guess you don't have to move. You just have
Nope,
to
you
change
got me that
PowerPoints.
time, so
And this
sorry.
is consent, right, guys?
Sure.
Okay.
Okay. All right, second item. So as you know, we've been working on our Veterans Memorial design for the last few years now. And unfortunately, the design that we last worked with was just out of our projected budget. Not something we felt comfortable doing. So we're working with the same design firm. And what they've done is they've really given us what we think will be a more conservative approach to the Memorial Plaza. It's going to be very open. It'll complement the new Vietnam War Memorial that's coming very nicely. And just really be a nice tribute to our veterans. What we have now, we have these beautiful ceremonies with Memorial Day and Veterans Day. And, when you go to visit the actual structure, it just doesn't feel appropriate, I guess is the best way for me to put it. This is just kind of a high level design of what the space would look like. So when you're coming up to the space where we currently have our plaque for I believe it's the DeKalb County Commissioners, as you're walking up, the first thing you see, that's this bronze statue, is what they call the Soldier's Cross. And that serves as a visible memory of a fallen soldier. And then across from that, you'll see this first, what I'm calling this granite plaque is what we have existing out there already. And this will be for our prisoners of war with a representative flag. And the biggest thing you'll notice on this space is as you walk up, you're greeted, again, it's all very open compared to the last design. We're able to use the same components. We have the existing structures of our plaques that honor our 7 branches military, each with a respective flag. And then what you'll find in the middle is the American flag, and then just in front of that is this, what we're calling the Eternal Flame, and that will be on like a 6-foot Elberton base, Eternal Flame. So as you walk up, you're seeing kind of this grand memorial plaza. We are going to keep the kind of octagonal shape of the existing memorial. So what we're going to do with our current bricks, those red bricks that have been dedicated, we're going to space those out. So almost you have like spokes coming off to kind of keep that same shape. And then what we would really like to do is revamp that program that with the VFW. We had that a long time ago where people could come and honor a family member, buy a brick and have it engraved and dedicated. And what we'd really like to see with this design is that program rejuvenated. It's just so important. And I think a lot of people maybe don't realize we have that just because of the current structure. So this is, again, and this will tie in to the Vietnam Memorial that's coming. There'll be a path between the two plazas. And we're excited to get this project moving again. This is just a discussion item for design. I'm just here to see what questions you may have, what feedback. And then the next step in the process would be to move on to construction documents and then putting it out to see where we are for pricing.
John?
Thank you for the presentation. There's a reason that we are not the art approval committee up here. It seems a little underwhelming to me. I want to know, what is the feedback that you've gotten from the VFW, from DeKalb County, others? Have you gotten any feedback? Have you talked to others, or are you just coming to us with this first? I'm trying to understand the timeline and what work has gone into making this presentation.
So we've met with a couple members that are working on the Vietnam War Memorial. And they were on site when we first started talking about our plan. It was their suggestion for that cast brown soldier's cross. They love the idea of the Eternal Flame. And that was one of our things, was, does this feel like would be appropriate? And they said, absolutely. It's, the space is meant to be something where people can enjoy, pay tribute. And having it open means you can do that at any time of day. We haven't put it in front of the large crowd like we did for the last one. This has fallen between Memorial Day and Veterans Day.
Yeah.
We could, if we wanted to wait to that point.
I just look at this as that we became a city and we inherited the DeKalb County Veterans Memorial. It was theirs in place, and we've taken good care of it the best we could. We've made some proposed changes. We put it in front of veterans. We've vetted the design and gotten feedback. And now it seems like maybe we're going forward with this design, or thinking about this design without vetting it. Maybe to me, I think it needs to be vetted wider, more. And then you're telling us that the other design was over budget, but you don't tell us how much. You basically just say it exceeded, but you don't tell us by how much.
For the last design?
Yeah, were we over budget by $10 or 10,000 or 2 million?
The lowest quote was about $600,000.
Okay.
I would like to be at least half of that. A big part of that was those big granite pillars. We had a lot of vertical structure with the ring. So we've talked to the design team, and they're also hopeful that bringing it down ground level would help with that cost, but we're still able to use granite, nice stonework with that price point, hopefully.
Again,
That'll be the next part.
I'd love to see this vetted a little bit more. I didn't understand the soldier's cross. Maybe I didn't see it. Maybe I didn't understand it. There's things I don't see here. There's things I don't understand.
The boot.
Okay. So
it's the picture on the left. It is a little, the left
there.
picture, but to the right.
Yeah, maybe we just right there.
Anyway,
Maybe
you see
close
where I'm
in.
at on it. That's just my opinion. So thank you.
Yeah, and as we move forward through the design process, I can get, different views, different aerials, things like that from the design firm. We just wanted to have kind of a jumping off point, if you will.
Rob.
So, John, once again, you beat me to the same point I was gonna make. So, great minds are thinking alike tonight, I guess. I just want to echo his thought that when we come up with an initial concept, I think you gotta run it by VFW, American Legion. These are the people gonna be using it,
Yeah.
and so we need to make sure at a minimum we get their input, into what we're doing here.
Catherine.
And I don't see anything about lighting. Are you gonna light this all night? What is
The flag has uplighting around it. And then we could, that's the goal is to kind of enhance the space with lighting, landscape, that sort of thing, once the big, Memorial Plaza pieces are in place.
Yeah, just
Yep.
how light is that gonna be all night? I'd just be interested in the illumination effect.
See all night? Is that
with
what you're
Yeah,
saying?
I don't know. I don't know if you went light on
The
all
park is
night.
closed.
Park is closed, so the flag, I'd have to go back and look. I know there's
Rules.
specifications around lighting a flag.
Right. I
We'd
mean, you have to
look at
take it
that.
down if you're gonna
Right.
not light it,
Right.
but that's just food for thought, I guess. And I'm hearing that you're gonna take my brick and reposition it in a nice new spot. Okay.
You're
Thank
right.
you.
So
Carefully.
I think we ought to arrange for a meeting with the VFW. They have regular monthly meetings, I think, or regular, well, it won't happen tomorrow. But, so I think it would be nice to put it on boards and get their feedback. I think it could be a little bit more three-dimensional, but otherwise I think it is very appropriate. And to me, it feels like a place where you would come to reflect on your loved ones that you lost. It's not supposed to be a celebratory place, I don't think. But I think getting feedback from them, if we have to fundraise, we have to figure out the money. We have to go back to the cab. We have to figure all that out. But, to me, the one that's there, which is locked and you can't get in and you can only use from the outside and look in, is almost a waste of space for
Right.
people that want to have a solemn moment, because you're looking inward, you're not surrounded by it. So
Right.
I look forward to their feedback.
Sure.
Yes, go ahead, Stacy.
And I agree with what we said about the three-dimensional, and I almost think I know we had the granite pillars, but what if we just, because what the blocks of granite, like, what's on them? Is it just?
No, I think each.
Are we
one says-
reusing the
Let me answer
existing
that.
ones?
These are the existing, they have
Right.
the branches of service.
There's existing.
They're the
Yeah.
existing ones.
With
Okay.
the addition, we are
We
gonna
need to
add space for us.
us.
Right.
Okay.
That's the new one.
So I would love just, I don't know, kind of envision almost like a wrought iron, like frame, kind of enclosed.
not
We had,
signing it
I
right
know,
now.
but I'm just, we
Right.
have some sort of feeling of enclosure, and I fully believe that flag should be lit day and night.
Well, it should be, that's the rules,
I
but the
know.
rest of the lighting
I know, I'm just,
is,
why
yes.
don't we, Catherine said, maybe we take it down. No, you leave it up.
Well,
Maybe
we're
you
not
light it.
taking it down. We'll never get that right. Go ahead, Joe. Oh,
We've got, if we had our 6-month reserve, we have cash. We could potentially all come to the table of if we needed to, after we draw down, even with the 6-month reserve, to spend some money to do this. So what I would like to do, though, I'm not an art person, so can we, don't want to add too much on staff, but what other stakeholders? The Rotary Club was involved with the memorial up in Alpharetta. You said a couple owners there. Do we get maybe one member from our Public Art Commission that knows what they're talking about? And a vet, but maybe even somebody that's not a vet, somebody just an at-large, just I'm just trying to throw out, just getting a good perspective of, because there's folks, they see things differently, right?
Yeah.
I sort of did like the first one, but yeah, that was a price point. So I'd rather, let's do it good and I don't have a deadline, you know what I mean? I mean, originally we were thinking we could do it all at the same time, but let's get it done
Right.
right. Just bring in some more inclusive people and have some conversations, yeah?
right. Tom.
Uh, There we go. Okay. Thanks, Rachel. So is this still the DeKalb Veterans Memorial, or is it going to be the Dunwoody Veterans? Is any of that changing, the naming, are we removing the monument that's there now at the bottom of the sidewalk that says the DeKalb? I mean,
I don't think we can remove.
Right.
okay,
You add to it, you put another one up or something if you want to.
yeah, I mean, I would like, since we're putting money in the game now, I would like it to also be a Dunwoody recognized in the naming of this monument. Not that that's the focus of it, it's on the veterans. Hopefully as a part of this, I'm sure this is on your checklist, the actual DeKalb monument is off its pedestal, it's crooked. I don't know if a car hit it or a bunch of teenagers, but it is.
Probably. It shifts from time to
It's yeah, hopefully that can be fixed. I have some questions. Most of them have already been answered, so that's good. Based on this rendering, are we clear cutting all the trees that are on that hillside now, or are some of them remaining? I have no problem getting rid of, it's mostly loblolly pines. Those can all go. There are some hardwoods. Some of them look like they're diseased. There was some, because I actually went there this morning, I was walking around, there were some big dead branches laying on the ground. So obviously if they're unsafe, they need to go. But is the plan to clear all the trees leading up to this? Because that's what it looks like in the rendering.
It wouldn't be as open as what's being shown here. Of course, if there's anything that has to be removed due to construction, we would know that once we had our construction set. And then anything, dead, dying, disease, we don't want to take anything out just to take them out. It would be a little fuller than what you're seeing here.
Yeah, and I noticed also there are some trees that were planted there that were dedicated to the Georgia Women's Club or
Women's Club
something.
has one.
Yeah, so hopefully if those had to be.
We looked at that one. I'm not sure it's in great health anyways. We've talked to them about relocating, so they're aware that there's a possibility. Yep.
And so with the flag going up, the American flag going up at the center of the monument or up in the plaza area, the existing American flag that's down kind of by the parking lot, is that going to be removed?
So that would have to stay down there for our Memorial Day and Veterans Day ceremonies.
Okay.
I just don't know that we can get 350 people comfortably in this new Memorial Plaza. So that would likely stay down in the current area where it is now.
So that probably answers my next question, because there are actually 4 stone monuments. 2 of them are blank and 2 of them have names on them of a specialist, Jamal Addison and a Rick Lane. I don't know who those 2 individuals are, but so I guess with that pole remaining there, those monuments will remain where they are.
Down, where we have the podium.
Yeah, there's
now,
4, where we normally have the ceremony, there's 4 stone monuments there now. 2 have nothing on them, but 2 have names on them. So those are all going to remain. That's not going to change. Okay. And then the sidewalk connecting to the Vietnam Veterans War Memorial, it will be, I presume, the city's responsibility to build that connection, because they haven't begun to do that. I know it's in the renderings for the Vietnam Memorial, but we will make that connection, and that'll be a
and
part.
once we're able to get farther along in the construction set, we'll have a better CAD file. I've already been in touch with the design firm that is doing the Vietnam Memorial. She's aware. She's gonna help me tie everything together visually once we get there. So
And all of the existing sidewalks leading up to it will remain in place, I presume, right? Those will just be used, because there's the one main one coming up, and then there's another side one that looks like it went to the buildings that used to be there when it was the Brook Run facility. It's just goes down to the parking lot, but I guess there's no reason to rip it out if it's in good shape, right? Okay.
We are doing some ramp and sidewalk work on the Vietnam Memorial side. And then once both areas are complete, we can always go back in and see where we need to, continue to enhance with beautification and things like that.
Yeah, and with the lighting, there's currently 2 pole lights up there. They're probably best removed, just because once the structure is taken out, they would really look out of place and unbalanced, because they're
the ones inside the memorial.
Yeah, there's one kind of at the top of the path leading to it, and then there's one just kind of off to the side, and I think they would probably look out of place. I don't know if that's been factored into, if those lightings remain, or any additional lighting is added, or if it's just.
I'm not being rude, Tom, but we are way in the weeds.
Yeah.
And so.
But we're being asked to approve,
No, we're
on a
not.
future thing
No.
to go forward with.
Well, we've asked her to take
Yeah.
it back and do other, I'm not being rude, and
No, I understand.
am,
Yeah.
but we're not supposed to talk about where lights go. That's not our job. Exactly. And so if you could do what I think the consensus was, is take it out, share it with more people. And come back. There's no deadline. We've long blown past the deadline. Brett said we would do this by. Potentially, Eric, if you want to price the last
Sure,
last
sure.
plan that I've heard some mutterings that they
Right.
were fine with that.
Yeah.
Let us know how much that's cost. DeKalb County did contribute some money, of which we have spent
It did.
some on design.
Yes.
So I think that the reason I'm cutting you off is that I think we're talking about a plan that may not be the plan. Okay, sorry. But I don't know that this is going to be ultimately the plan anyway, but if you could make an appointment to go to a VFW meeting, I think when they're there, when they have a good attendance,
Yeah.
which is monthly, I think.
Right.
Well, tomorrow's too early, probably. Tomorrow's too early. You got to have
Good.
boards and stuff, but when you're ready and start feedback. And then once we have a sense of the direction we think we need to go, we can reapproach DeKalb County. Maybe they'll return a phone call.
Well,
And
Mayor, if it's okay, what I'd like to do is we can have a mock-up out on site.
yes,
And that we'll put together a plan out there and put some poster boards out there where people can
I don't
visualize
think
stuff.
anybody comes there.
No, but I think we can have the meeting. If some of the VFW people could come out, Joe, maybe you can help organize that.
I think we need to go to them.
Okay, fair enough.
I mean, you can do both, but I think you need to go to them because of they're going to be there anyway. If you ask, I mean, you could probably get a subcommittee of them. So either, however you want to do it.
Yeah.
It's not my job to tell you how to get more input. I think we need more input. Right. Well, it was supposed to be finished two veterans 2 days ago or whatever. So I think we can do it multiple ways, however you think it's best to get more thing. I think a comparison of budget would be helpful for council, and that actually could come to us in the next meeting or two, just in case people are comfortable with spending from the reserves on that. I
Okay.
don't have a comment one way or the other. But I just think that, we're not supposed to tell you where the trees go and stuff like that. So if you could just get more input, and then we'll look at the rest of the options.
Sure.
For
I'm the last one.
bathrooms,
I know. It's all things parks tonight. Okay.
right?
All right. Last one. So as you know, we're very familiar with Wildcat Park. We do have a few amenities over there. We are seeing more and more folks visit the park. Unfortunately, restrooms are not something that we have out there now. I know we discussed this at the council retreat earlier this year. So essentially what I'm offering as a discussion item are three options for Wildcat, temporary and permanent. Our first one, this is the cheapest option would be portable restrooms. Estimated cost of $200 per month per unit, which does include one weekly service to clean. This includes them delivering and picking up the unit whenever we're finished with it. These would be handicap accessible. And then I've added in an estimate of $2,000 just for beautifications. What that would mean is, almost what you see at maybe some commercial buildings with dumpsters, fencing, landscaping, trying to make it as attractive as we can, given the state of what it is. This is something we could easily fund from our parks operating fund. Kind of middle tier here, this would be our ADA accessible trailer. So think like what you see at maybe like Reformation Brewery. It's a trailer that's on site. I talked to Hayward the other night. He could do a logo on it, so at least there's some sort of branding. This would be around $8,000 a month, which includes the company to come 2 times a week to service, empty the waste tank, restock soap and paper Monday through Friday, and then we would supplement with our Triscapes contract for extended supplies and weekend janitorial. Just to keep the area as clean as we can. Same thing, additional estimate of $2,000 for beautification once this is in place. And this would be something that we could find from our parks operating fund. And then last but not least would be what we call a CXT. So this is a prefabricated building like we did at Waterford Park. And this would be, multi-user, fully accessible structure. And the $175,000 estimate you're seeing there includes what we think we would have to do as far as connecting to utilities, site work, and then, dropping and building the building itself. At this price point, we would have to look at our general capital fund. The challenge with prefab, and here's the site plan, the master plan currently for Wildcat Park has 2 restroom facilities. These are notated as number 10 and 19 in the red boxes. So if we were to drop in the prefabricated building in these same spots, that's what we're looking at as far as the site work estimate, things like that. There would be, if this is something that we think we're not ready for, it would present a challenge for any future construction, kind of building around, we're aware of that. If we moved them maybe closer to the road, or closer, like what you're seeing, number 22, 24 back there, that would be something that, you as youth council would have to agree on, since it would differ from the master plan just a tad. Happy to discuss these, but these are, again, sort of a jumping off point of some options we have currently, if we're ready to make a decision for restrooms.
Okay. Who has questions, comments, or actually, if you just know which one you want, you can say that. Rob.
I don't know that I have a preference. I was just doing some math here. And if the middle option, I mean, a portalet, I don't think would work. I think you're looking at the second or third option. If you go with the second option, after 22 months, you might as well have done
correct
something permanent. For the permanent one, what's a added maintenance cost for that? Because the other two included cleaning, stocking, all that. This one is just site work and construction.
Yeah.
What's it cost to maintain?
It would be the same. That's built into the 175. And that would be something that the Tribescapes would add to their contract. We've talked about it when we renewed their contract last time, the potential for these newer parks. So they're aware that it would be a possibility. You're looking at maybe $1,000 a month if we added this to their existing contract.
So, and I'm looking at the master plan sketch, and I popped up Google Earth as well. So if we built this, you're saying right now we would just be building it out in a field because there's not
So
connecting
number
paths.
10
Or,
is kind of near that roundabout we have now.
okay,
19 is field. So that's
Okay.
part of the site work, is getting accessibility, concrete
I
work
gotcha,
up to the
gotcha,
site
gotcha.
utilities. Yep.
yeah, I would say between the two, whichever one requires the least amount of work to get something within the space. I gotta say, I was originally thinking something temporary, and now I'm leaning towards, if we're gonna do it, why do something expensive short term and then do something expensive long term and just do it once. But anyway, that's just kind of my thoughts and questions.
Sure.
Catherine.
I agree with Rob's math. There is no reason, I think, we're not gonna move in 22 months. So then the question is, if we put it somewhere where we didn't see it ending up permanently, is it movable, this prefab structure?
So we actually called the manufacturer of this to see if they've done that before. Ballpark, if we think it's something that can come in, crane lift, and then change the site work, probably $75,000. We didn't hear back before the meeting on if they've ever done that, or maybe a tighter price point if they could. That would be my only caution with that, is I don't want to get stuck putting it somewhere if it's not going to fit the
So
plan.
So you could put it on 10 where we would intend it in the long term. You're just thinking it would be harder to build around. Harder, but harder in what way? Not impossible. They don't have to dig under it.
No.
They just have to go around it.
Right.
Yeah, I vote for 10 and permanent.
Tom, did you have any feedback? I'm just getting.
I'm a hard no on the porta potties, I'll tell you that. And I'm also a no on the temp. I did a lot of research, or as much as I could online, about the option 2, the trailers, and nowhere did I find that this was what they were intended for. They're events, special events, festivals, maybe a reconstruction project or something where bathrooms are out of. It wasn't meant to be a permanent solution out there, and I just see it being a magnet for bad things and just unattractive. I mean, I was a very vocal critic of the DeKalb County school system for having trailers for classrooms. I'd be a little hypocritical to put out trailers for bathrooms in one of our parks. So and then you add in the financial part of it, and it just doesn't make sense that when after 2 years, less than 2 years, we could put a permanent structure out there. My concern was, so the grading, so that it could be put at we could install that at the grade that we would anticipate, based on the master plan. If we put it in the location that's on the master plan, there wouldn't be any grading issues as well as far as the current site, or would we have to grade up to get it? You know what I'm saying? Because we're putting in fields and there's going to be, I presume, grading work done at the site.
There
So
would, so 10, especially because 10 is where we have that roundabout now, all that we would have to change. Specifics as far as slope and grading, I don't know. That was just kind of our estimate based on previous work.
yeah, but
Getting the area ready.
three is my my preference as well.
Okay.
John, because we're coming down the road.
Rachel, tell me the need for the restroom at Wildcat. Is it needed today?
It is. So we have a lot of families that use the playground, the goggle pit area. We've started to program what we can a little bit on the fields. I believe I can't remember if it's middle school or high school lacrosse. Just in brief periods of time, again, because there are no facilities. So this would help us allow to expand our programming until we.
Are there restrooms that are needed at Homecoming or at anywhere else in the city park system?
Homecoming we don't see the usage at Homecoming like we do at Wildcat, just because it's still open field and then our operations office. If we added amenities, then you definitely would. The only request I've seen lately has been for maybe a water fountain, something for, dogs. We have a lot of people that run out there, fly drones, have their dogs run around. It's very passive compared to Wildcat Park.
Okay. And was there a proposal at one point for a restroom at the dog park or somewhere on that, over by the community garden, somewhere in that realm?
I believe there was talks of a dog park restroom and maybe in phase 2 of Brook Run, when we
Okay.
talked about that.
Okay, I'm just trying to understand.
Yeah.
There's a need for restrooms today at Wildcat and maybe other places, and the turnaround time for the portable restroom would be almost immediately compared to the other options. I was sort of against the portable restroom because I saw the ADA was the number 2 option, but then I saw your photo of the porta potty was actually an ADA restroom. So the ADA would be applicable to whether it's restroom portables or the number 2 option. I don't know. I'm just trying to look at how fast can we serve the needs of our citizen and put in the portables where we can immediately and plan out everything else at some point through that. I mean, I don't know if there's a need today, why are we not putting in the portables? Granted, it's not the best option, but it's a fast option. And is it the appropriate option for today versus 6 months from now?
I do believe that option 2 does require electrical and water hookups as well. So I don't know the extent of that, but that would be a consideration for that.
Again, it's all, I'm thinking porta potties immediately and serve the needs immediately. And then from that, make a decision on long-term. I don't know, I'm just trying to look at where the needs of the citizens. So, looking from that perspective.
Stacy?
I haven't made up my mind yet, except I'm a no to option 2 for the 22-month thing. And I guess I'm hesitant on the permanent. I mean, you're talking about putting the turnaround. I mean, I'm just finding it hard to believe that we can put it there and all that needs to be done with hookups and traffic and turning this and turning that for $175,000. I would like to think we could, but I'm just hesitant because there's so many unknowns. And correct me if I'm wrong, but there was never mind that question. So I'm an undecided because I'm kind of with John. Porta potty is not the worst thing in the world, and the number one thing you need at a park is a restroom. On the other hand, if we could actually do permanent, but on the other hand, there's unknown. So that's kind of where I am right now.
Joe?
Let's just add another layer.
No.
Is there drinking water available at Wildcat Park? Is there a water fountain? Would we, with any of these 3 options, which of these 3, if any, do we get a drinking fountain? Is it just option 3?
It would be the CXT, yeah, the water, the.
All
one
right,
that's like
so
Waterford.
side conversation, separate topic because it's not on the agenda, but maybe we look at where are we needing also drinking fountains inventoried, and could we quickly put those up, right? So in
We
around
did
at
price
parks,
one. We had someone ask about a water fountain at homecoming.
drinking.
Drinking, it was like what we have at the park where it's the bottle filler, drinking
Mhm.
fountain, and then for
Yeah.
doggies. The structure itself is about $5,000. And to run the line, again, this is at homecoming where there's not a lot of existing, that would be another 5, so $10,000 for one water fountain, so we're not.
Yeah, I'm a
ready for
big
that,
fan of water
but,
fountain,
yeah.
and I see the hybrid. I'm a Libra, so I kind of see the get them out now. Just put the porta potties in. That's a quick win. But then give me some drinking water fluid to drink with, and then if we go to the permanent, I see the ROI absolutely on the permanent, but it's got to be that location siting. We got to really, really go due diligence and put the stakes in the ground and make sure we get all the engineering. And at the end of the day, Eric, correct me wrong, it's all going to go for a bid anyway. We get pricing.
Right.
And in the bid, we're going to say, we want you to do the site plan and everything else and see what that comes back to. Eventually come back to council to decide up and
Right.
down anyway. Yeah.
Say
Okay.
something? Anybody else? So, I'm gonna step back and let council figure this one out. But my sense is to what John said and Stacy said is that nothing's happening tomorrow with anything even semi-permanent. And if we feel like there's a need, we can put a porta potty in, and not the nice, there's nothing much particularly nice about a porta potty. But, it's there if people need it. It doesn't, it's, just get it done and then, come up with maybe a less expensive way to screen it potentially. Cause we don't need to screen it permanently. Cause hopefully it won't be permanent. And then during the budget process, we can maybe hash which gives us till this, oh my gosh, not many long. It's already August. But we can move forward to figure all this out as we start to prioritize capital projects.
Okay.
My concern isn't that it's hard for the builders to build around because I think, they can figure that out. They do it in a lot of workspaces and job places. My concern is that we don't really know what the number really is going to be. So that's a concern I have. Go ahead, Rob.
I think I'm kind of coming around now to put something there. My one question would be, the park closes in the evening. Will part of the park closure be putting a padlock on the porta potty so nobody messes with it overnight, or will it just be open for?
We could have Triscapes add that to their routine.
I'm
Open at
just a
7:30.
curiosity. I mean, that kind of thing to me is ripe for somebody decide to just push it over
There
for
are some
fun.
concerns for.
So stabilizing it, I think might also,
Yes.
just thinking out loud in the details here.
Yep.
Okay. I think that was not, sometimes I can summarize, but I think there's a sense that no one's thrilled with porta potties.
Understandable.
However, I think there's, if I'm counting in my head, enough support to consider putting them out there at least temporarily. And if it doesn't work, they just come and get them.
Right.
This isn't like a marriage that's hard to get out of. They'll just come and get them. If it doesn't work, right? But if it doesn't work, no, you can't really do that, I don't think, but I don't need it. But I think that that's some consensus
Okay.
of the room. And then we can figure out the rest as we figure out how we're going to develop the parks. I think the key difference between this park, well, besides use, and the homecoming park on Vermac is his homecoming is on septic. And
Right.
so everything would be more complicated.
Right.
And so I think this is a good place to send you. And then
Yeah.
if we get tons of, part of it is I think one of our challenges is that no one's asking us for a bathroom. We know that it's a big equity, right?
Mhm.
It's an inequity to have public parks with no bathrooms because only people nearby can use them.
Right.
And also we want the space used. It's just sitting there. So, right. So I think that I've got like voices in my ears that are arguing with each other. One is saying it's used a lot. One of us saying it's used a lot. I don't know the answer, but I think a porta potty is an easy place to start.
Okay.
And then we go from there.
Fair enough.
And that concludes the Rachel Waldron discussion items.
I've covered everything, I think, tonight. Porta
Yes.
potties, bathroom.
Right,
Oh my gosh, I cleared the room.
right. All
Thank
right.
you, guys.
Thank you. With that, public comment, Mr. Hickey, I'm guessing you stayed not right, or porta potty discussion, right? You'll have 3 minutes, sir.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. City Council, I appreciate this opportunity to state my feelings on what the internal auditor, Mr. Johnson, may have implied about I didn't understand or I was confused about the city financial statements. Let me just reinforce the fact that I was not confused. I am not confused about financial matters. I had a college education, both bachelor's degree and a master's degree with an accounting major. I passed the CPA exam on the first attempt. I got the gold medal, which was the highest score in Georgia. I'm happy to share that with you sometime. I know what the hell I'm talking about on financial matters. I can prepare, I can read, I can analyze, okay? I know about financial matters. So I want to clarify that. I think the more appropriate person to have had up here tonight talking about this stuff was the external auditor, the partner from Malden and Jenkins. The internal auditor can't talk for him. Get this other guy's butt up here and let him explain what happened. Was there any adjustments made to the financial statements? That's a basic question, okay? I think, it looks to me like there was, okay? There is this reconciliation between the two that I would like to see. I'm sure you would like to see it too, okay? I mean, the city financial statements, I only have your stuff right here. It says, the city prepared statement says, statement of revenues and expenses, City of Dunwoody, okay? The auditor statement says, City of Dunwoody, statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balances. They're about the same, okay? And the ending number, okay? Total revenues over expenditures from the city, okay? The external auditor says total excess or deficiency of revenues over expenditures. Says the same captions, okay? There's city financial statements. There are 3 financial documents that the city puts out. They have a cash register, okay? They put out that every day or every week. They have the city prepared statement of operations, okay? Internally prepared. And then the auditor prepares the external stuff. The nary the twain shall meet in most cases. So I am not confused. I think the external auditor needs to get up here and explain, okay? If there are no adjustments, I will apologize to the city staff, okay? I will say, staff, I'm very apologetic, okay? So, but I don't know. I can't tell from these. Looks to me like there were major adjustments, like $3 million. So the last thing I'll say before I run out of time, accurate and timely financial data from the city is a requirement for citizen trust and confidence in the operation of our city. I may be the only citizen in Dunwoody that reads all of this stuff, okay? And I assure you, I don't trust the city financial documents. Thank you. Good
Thank
night.
you. Good night. Drive safely. Anybody, I've lost my agenda. Sorry, guys. Council, city manager comments, executive session, right?
Yes, ma'am. We need an executive session for both cybersecurity and legal.
Okay. Any council comments? Catherine.
I'd like to use my council comment time to rebut the public comments earlier this evening regarding recruiting women in policing. I went to the college that I did and the major that I did because I received a letter from the college welcoming women into engineering, which is an historically and currently male-dominated field. I was well qualified for that field. I just hadn't considered that as my first choice, and I was well suited for that. I liken that directly to recruiting women for policing, a male-dominated field, wherein if we are a city that looks welcoming to women who had not perhaps recognized this as a possible path for them, we are recruiting a new pool, and as the mayor has correctly stated, not underqualified or unqualified, but similarly or better qualified, what we are looking for is out there. So I am supportive of the police efforts and disappointed with the comments earlier.
John,
I'd also like to echo what Catherine just said. The city of Dunwoody's police department, to a certain extent, should mirror the community. It should mirror the community. We have citizens that are victims of crime and need to report crime to police officers. We should have a well-trained, well-documented, capable police department, but having women on the police department is a goal of mine, and I have told that to the chief and the new chief, as well as having language skills and ethnic diversity to match our community. I think it's important.
I just have to echo what has been said as well. My daughter was a police cadet. She has done multiple ride-alongs with officers on the DPD. I was a little appalled at what I heard tonight. We did not ask the Dunwoody Police Department to do the 30 by 2030. It's what they came down with from the International Chiefs Association, and I applauded them for doing it, and I still do, and I cannot wait till hit that 30 by 2030.
last weekend, a week ago, there was a tragedy in our community. A gentleman collapsed and unfortunately did not survive. But what I want to focus on is that in the tragic moment, Dunwoody residents stepped up and showed up to try to be of assistance, from the person who stopped their car based on sort of eyewitness reports, like almost immediately when he collapsed, to the two passerbys, one running and one on his bike, who happened to be a doctor, stopped by to try to revive him, to our outstanding response from first responders. Everything that could have happened correctly happened. And I am grateful for a community where people will do that. That's not true of every community. And so while there are members of our community who like to focus primarily on the negative, I think it's important to remember that while we are a very large city, relatively speaking, we are a small town in many ways. And so, Deputy Chief, make sure your officers know how grateful we are, and the Cab Fire, but the residents who simply saw what happened and stopped to aid and provide assistance and comfort in those moments are greatly appreciated, and we value them tremendously. With that, and also, anyway, I'll leave the others to others set. With that, I need a motion for executive session for cybersecurity and legal.
I'm second.
Moved by John, second by Stacy. All in favor, say aye. We will be back. The agenda.
We can just do it here. We're on camera here. Be. The green light's on. Pro Tem.
Oh, yeah,
Oh.
You write this.
End the meeting? Yeah. Move to end the meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.